Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 432. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's cracking?
This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together and talk about the DC books we read this week. Coming up on today's show, we have Absolute Superman issue 1, Batman 154, Action Comics 1074, Batgirl issue 1, Birds of Prey issue 15, JSA issue 1, Shazam 17, Poison Ivy 27, Plastic Man No More issue 3, and I've got a Patreon book. I'll be talking about American Vampire 1976 issue 2. It's a lot of books.
It's a lot of books.
But there's like no news or anything else.
No,
So
and it's like this too. I hate that when DC does that because it's an embarrassment of riches. Because it's a lot of books and it's a lot of books I enjoyed.
Yeah, there was a lot of interesting stuff to read this week.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, it is what it is. We're here. We'll get through it. We'll wade through the pages and the whatnot. I don't know where this sentence is going.
I don't either, and I was just gonna see because I like the meanderingness. It's kind of when you see someone kind of stumbling around and there's a set of stairs and you're like, are they going that way? No, they saved it. Okay.
Oh dear, yes. I mean, I'd ask how your week is, Matt, but I feel like I've got a good indication of how your week probably went.
The horrors persist, but so do I. You know what? I watched a lot. Well, not a lot. Over the course of the year, I've watched enough Lovecraft to understand the madness, and now I understand it more than ever now. That's at the center of all of his stories. You know. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what to say.
All I have to say is, right, we read these stories in comic books because we're drawn to the light that is superheroes, right? And sometimes you need that lighthouse, that shining beacon. And if we can be that for people, great, because that's what the comics are for us. So, you know, and I'm gonna try to shine bright. Although we all know when I shine bright, I burn bright, I burn fast, and I'll be grumpy within the next couple hours. So, you know.
What else do I say to that? I teased last week I was going to be watching Cool as Ice for a show. I did. Those full thoughts will be on Patreon later in the month. But I'll just say, it's probably as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Yes. So you're saying that his peak acting came in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze.
He wasn't overstepping his limits in that. I'll say that good. Much. That's
he just did the ninja rap.
Just did the ninja rap. Cool as Ice is a movie that when it's doing a montage, it's just a music video, and that's clearly what the director knew how to do. When it was doing anything else, the pacing was unique, to say the least.
Oh boy!
So, yeah, that was how I started my post-show week, in the last week.
The absolute, and you don't even drink, so there's no, there's no. At least if it was like Connor, he could get sauced up and watch it. But you're like me, you don't drink. We just have to, live life as it is.
Now I just have to question why he's got the price tag still on his hat and stupid things like that. Anyway, we'll get into the list formerly known as the Comixology Top 10, now known as the Kindle rankings or whatever we're calling it now.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking at the books came out this Wednesday. All the publishers are mixed these days. So Matt, have you got a guess for what number one is?
I'm gonna go off the hip, straight out, down the barrel. Absolute Superman number 1.
That's correct. That is number 1. There you go.
That makes me happy. Jason Aaron doing my favorite superhero, and the people are buying it. So, yes.
Number 2 is Ultimates. Number 3 is X-Men. Number 4 is Aliens versus Avengers, which, I mean, I'm morbidly curious, but it's also Hickman, which I'm not particularly excited about. So, yeah, that's what it is. 5 is JSA issue 1.
Hey.
6 is Action Comics. 7 is Batman. 8 is Avengers. Actually, Batman being at 7 is kind of notable. Like the fact that the alien crossover gimmicky books beating Batman's kind of a big deal. But
Yeah.
yeah, 8's Avengers, 9 is Saga, 10 is X-Force. So that's your top 10. I will point out that Batgirl just missed the cut. That's at number 11, so not too low down, thankfully.
That was my next question to see.
Yeah. Plastic Man was 15. Birds of Prey is 17. Yeah, a lot of competition this week.
Where was Ivy?
Ivy is... That's a good question. Where is Ivy? Wait,
Oh, boy.
I don't know. Have I passed it? No, maybe I haven't. Hold on. I need to click show more. Hold on. We're getting there. Wait, I must have just not lost it. What's the cover for Ivy this week look like?
It's got her. It looks like she's in a church. There's people behind her. It's red and green.
Ivy in a church. Oh, there. Oh, there she is. Hold on. I need 5, 10, 15, 20, 25.
Okay, I mean top 25. I'd like it for to do more, but again, these are digital. This isn't just physical. So
Poison Ivy lives and breathes on its variant covers selling to perverts. Let's be honest.
And you know what? That's just a bonus because it's a very good book. So I hope the perverts are reading.
Yeah, I mean, Creature Commandos was 24, so Creature Commandos sold more than it digitally.
Well, thanks for knocking me back down. Not that there's anything with the Creature Commandos book, but like, you know, it is all smotchy.
Oh, you say that like it means something.
It's a famous person writing a book. They've been getting them, you know. Paul Dano wrote that Riddler book.
Oh, wait. I thought you were saying that as a negative. You're saying that as a, no. It's got disadvantage because someone famous is writing.
Not necessarily an advantage, but I'm just saying, if it was some random writer, I'd be a little bit more upset. This
is copium. This is what the kids call copium.
Yes. Believe me, I'm huffing copium this week. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, but yeah, obviously lots of DC books sprinkled throughout. 4 in the top 10 specifically, although Marvel did. Oh wait, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4. Yeah, Marvel had 5, and then Saga went to the top 10. So there you go. Top 10. Not super exciting, but it is what it is. So let's just get into the books. We got a lot of books to talk about, and my brain is frazzled. I've read so many goddamn books in the last 4 hours. So we're going to kick things off with Absolute Superman issue 1, Jason Aaron writing with Rafa Sandoval on the art. This is the third of our Absolute line coming out. We had Batman first, we got Wonder Woman second, and now we've had Superman. Yep. And this was the first one announced. I mean, unless they'd announced multiples at the same time, but I feel like this is the first one we knew about.
Oh no, I feel like it was Batman. They led with Snyder coming back.
Maybe you're right.
I think. And then we heard about this one and then Wonder Woman.
Yeah, you may be right, but for whatever reason, I felt like this was the one that was sticking in my brain. Is like,
I feel like Superman and Wonder Woman got announced at around the same time, and we were, both excited for their creative teams. So
yeah, I mean this book's interesting, as all the Absolute books have been, and how it reshapes the origin. It's kind of like half the book takes place on Krypton before its destruction. And it's not just the opening, because obviously there's an extended opening on Krypton, but it even goes back to it by the end, and it seems like that at least through the first arc, I suspect that we're going to keep getting more of the story of what happened in those last days of Krypton.
Which I do like, because I feel like we get the, single shot from All-Star Superman, right? The dying planet, the rocket ship, and that. And then we just jump to Superman. So it seems like Aaron is wanting to show the destruction of Krypton from the political and people standpoint, not just the destruction of the planet. Because it does not seem like this. Like, yes, it looks technologically advanced and beautiful, but it is rotting from within in more ways than one.
Yeah, but I think more to the point though is that how different it is to normal. Like not drastically so, but it feels like everything's turned up to 11. So if we normally think of Krypton died because they were too arrogant about what they were doing to their planet, this is taking that and running with it, where we've got almost like a Gattaca style class system on Krypton, where not that it's about genetics necessarily, but the idea that, you know, the Sun people are the ones that are running the League, which is controlling the planet. They're all scientists. It's all about progress.
Mm-hmm.
And then anyone who's been deemed unsuitable for that, and we find out how both Lara and Jor-El, both as children at various stages, basically got themselves disqualified from the good life and now have to work in servitude for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
They are the lower class. They are not allowed to have the same privileges. And we also find out, at least in this Absolute universe, that the House of El symbol seems to be something that all the lower class wear. It's not a family symbol. It's
it's like the service class, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, Lara works as a mechanic, and like we get this very like bleak kind of dystopia where you have to pay for the rain. So you have these farmers out in the outskirts of the mega cities of Krypton that if they don't pay their rain bill, they just don't get to grow crops, you know? And so she's helping, you know, build this tractor for this guy, you know, and he mentions that she's like the best mechanic he's ever met. And then you find out that Jor-El was, you know, he wanted to be part of that big science class, right? But he questioned too many things. And he ended up being an engineer. So he's very gifted at what he does, but he's still on the working end of things. He's not in that leadership science council that we come to expect with him.
It's something you lost over there that's probably worth mentioning is that they literally create the rain. Like they control like clouds with technology, which is why they're charging for it. It's not just that there's a random bill whenever the clouds decide to have a bit of rain. Like they're literally
make it happen.
They've taken control of the ecosystem. They've taken control of everything. They're mining aggressively. Like there's giant skyscraper-sized superconductors in the cities that are just for producing energy. Like they've turned the entire planet into this big battery for the technology they use, and they also have a tight control over how their technology is used, what they're doing. You mentioned Jor-El. It was his graduation speech in high school, if they even called it that, but the equivalent, where he basically criticized how some of the technology has been used and what they're doing to the planet, and that got him blacklisted from ever joining the League. Lara, on the other hand, was blacklisted at age 9 because she wrote an essay, even though she was a gifted child, she had a bright future ahead of her, but because she criticized the rules against intergalactic travel, or whatever the rules are for intergalactic travel, because they didn't really get too specific with it here, that blacklisted her. So it's this idea that like she is very talented and potentially would have been like a NASA engineer if she'd kept going the path she wanted to be on, and Jor-El would be like leading the world of science in other ways, but instead he's like checking mines for safety issues and things like that, and she's fixing tractors.
They call him an engineer, and you know he's kind of like the worksite foreman, where he's responsible for all the workers, but he's kind of still middle management. And you know, the scene that that in.
No, he's not. Because they literally give you a class here that's called middle management that has a different symbol on the chest. So he is not. He's actually stepping out of line by making decisions, which then middle management challenge him on and say, get back to work. There's no evidence that this mine's unsafe. And Jor-El says, no, it's unsafe. Like, I'm fighting you on it. So it definitely shows us a Jor-El who's willing to stand up for what he thinks is right. Yes. And notably in the art, Jor-El in this book looks a lot more like Superman than Superman does. At least for now. I'm sure maybe Superman will get a haircut later on and he'll look more like...
But again, that can't be an accident by Sandoval.
No, not at all.
But he's drawing the similarities between them. But I also, the thing with Lara in the space too is like in traditional mythos, you know, she was an astronaut before she became Jor-El's wife, you know, and had the baby and stuff. So the fact that she was so interested in space travel, I like that they're keeping some of that stuff here. So again, like in the Batman book and the Wonder Woman book, they're still vaguely familiar, but there's these other things, like you said, that are turned up to 11 that make it different.
Yeah. I mean, even like when Lara's talking to the farmer, who at first I actually thought was Jor-El, or maybe even like Jor-El's dad, maybe.
So I thought too,
because he was much older.
Is he wearing a House of L?
He is, yeah. That's why I thought that, but we learn after that everyone in the working class wears this symbol. This is not a family symbol in this universe.
Right.
which is fine. But when they're talking about the weather and they're complaining that he's paid his rain bill and it's up to 3,000 whatever a month, they criticize and say, I bet Candor got its rain on time today. So they're critiquing the rich areas for getting their rain, and it's us poor parts of the planet that are always waiting, that are always getting things late. So, I mean, credit to Jason Aaron here, because he builds such a fully realized world in this opening, 15 pages or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Which, and it takes time. We start off with Lara and this farmer. We eventually get to Jor-El in the mines and like arguing about whether or not it's safe. And of course, there's Tremors, which he obviously is going to link to the fact that the planet's going to be dying soon, because that's just typical Krypton story. But all of this is super interesting. And of course, you're thinking during this, okay, how long is this before the end of the planet, though? Because in this first portion of the book, there is no indication that there is a Kal-El. There's no indication that they have a son. They don't mention it at all in the first part. It's actually a reveal when we come back to this part of the story, towards the end of the book, that they do have a son. Jor-El's got this look of fear in his eyes that, oh, hey, the planet's dying. Like, our days are numbered here. And then they say, where's Cal? And we're expecting to see a baby. And instead we see a 10-year-old?
Like a preteen,
Yeah, 10, 11, something in that range. So this, kind of like traditional Supergirl, this is a Clark Kent, a Superman, who is going to remember Krypton, because he's narrating the book and he's talking about his parents, and then we get the full context by the end that he's describing them, not just based on what he's learned in a Fortress of Solitude, if he even has such a thing. He's describing them in the way that he remembers them.
Yeah, he knows Jor-El, he knows Lara. It's not the memories or these what the Fortress has told them about them. So and I'm sure that'll impact his decisions going forward, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I got a lot of Gattaca vibes when he was describing the social structure of this Krypton. That page where it's like the sun wearers like having like lunch or whatever, and you see like the again, I'll call them the House of El Service staff. They're not actually part of the family, but just for lack of a better term, to like. And I'm like, oh yeah, this makes me think of Gattaca. I'm basically seeing Ethan Hawke right now, cleaning the place when all the astronauts are, the ones that are actually getting to do all the important stuff.
The stuff, yeah. Well, and there's always been like that kind of structure to stories about Krypton, right? But because Krypton's a dead planet, we never really see them in action. So here, Aaron really drives it home by making it seem, like you said, like Gattaca, these other familiar kind of caste systems that exist. So it makes it seem like, when we see Superman on our Earth and what that represents and what he does, it drives that home even more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, all that stuff's super interesting. It really paints a very different Krypton for what we're used to. And then things really sort of spice up when we get to the present day part of the story. We go to Brazil, and now and we basically get this story about this evil company, Lazarus they're called, and they have been. I mean, just to sum up what they do typically, right? Although Superman explains this has just happened, is that they've got people mining, not unlike Krypton, being forced to mine.
There are parallels.
There absolutely are. But they're mining for diamonds, but whilst these miners in this small village...
Oh, God damn it. Ow.
I think Matt meant to mute himself there, and he hurt himself getting up to do whatever he was doing, and now he's in pain. Anyway, so yes, while they're mining in the mines... Sorry, I'm distracted by you being in pain, Matt.
Yeah, well, I went to get up to let the cat out, and I pulled a muscle. So I didn't stretch good enough today. Carry on. Nothing to see here. I'm listening.
So they basically released a pocket of asbestos, right? And it started snowing asbestos out into the village where all their families live, and they're forced to keep digging. And so, it really presents this idea of like a Superman before he's quite become Superman, going around and just seeking out particular injustice. But notably, he seems to be targeting this because it's a running thing that this company's been doing all over the planet. Perhaps because, as we learn, he remembers what his parents used to do. Maybe he specifically feels he feels particularly upset by this going on versus everything else that's also probably happening. So the story here is that Superman, for the next day, has snuck into the mines and mined it all himself and crushed all of the rocks into their diamonds, so that the workers don't have to dig anymore. But this just like makes the peacekeepers, we find out, or like the guards, the enforcers here, they're all dressed like peacekeeper. They like
peacemakers.
Sorry, yeah, peacemakers. They start really beating up some of the workers and like, demanding to know how this happened, and they even mention, oh, this is just like something that happened in whatever other country, like there's something going on here, there's something weird. And they start teasing Superman. We sort of see him in a hood the night before talking to one of the workers, and we see his X-ray vision getting used, but it's kind of kept an arm's distance, right? We don't really get a full reveal of him. It's not until the Peacemaker is about to kill, or at least threatening to torture this worker, that we start getting really weird with it, because seemingly Superman, his suit has an AI in it, which is the best way I can describe it right now. Maybe there's more to it than that. But he's regenerating his solar energy, which maybe is something he has to do specifically in the Absolute Universe.
Because they said that he, doing the stuff that he did the night before, expelled a lot of that energy. But it almost looks like he's sleeping in like one of those charging pads that you can drop your phone onto.
I was thinking it looks more like Neo in the Matrix when he wakes up from the... because he's got a lot of red tubes get into him.
Yeah, kind of.
I don't know. Anyway, so there's like a military force coming to the town to deal with the fact that, there's something fishy going on here. But Superman wakes up, even though the AI voice keeps telling him not to. This is a bad idea. It seems like the AI voice, which is probably what do you call him?
Helix?
No, not Helix. Eradicator? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Oh yeah. Maybe I can see that.
The reason why I'm saying that is because he says that my purpose is to like maintain you because you're the last of Krypton. So he keeps trying to tell him to not do anything because you should be staying hidden. You should be a secret. So I'm thinking that maybe this is this universe's version of Eradicator.
That makes sense. I was thinking along the lines of Helix, or like even Skeets, like with Booster, that's there to kind of remind him to dial it back. But no, Eradicator makes a lot more sense in that sense.
Yeah, that was my first thought anyway. But Superman, comes out, he fights all these guys, we finally get a full page spread. He is wearing the symbol, there's no cape, at least for now. But he does take on the soldiers, so we get some action sequences and whatever else. So, but during all this, it cuts to another military force coming from Lazarus who aren't peacemakers. It's just like a SWAT team, but this is the field team for Phenomena. So this is actually a team that's sent in to deal with strange beings or like I'm kind of getting the impression that this team are supposed to like bring in stuff like this, right? The peacemakers are just there to do normal security work. This is more
they're the brute force. These guys are the ones. This is the science police kind of deal.
Yeah. So yeah, and there's notably a woman here who sort of deduces a bunch of stuff based on the blurry photographs that they've got of Superman. And I'm only mentioning her because she's going to be important in a few pages' time.
Yeah, what gave it to me was something about her physical features.
So. Yeah. Anyway, like the whole big thing is these troops show up. Superman's getting ready to be defiant, but a big metal like handcuff like slaps on his wrist, and it's Agent Lane, the woman there with much shorter hair is Agent Lane, and they seem to have apprehended Superman, and this is where we get the title page actually. They save it for quite late in the book. So. And this arc is called The Last Dust of Krypton, which is a very depressing version of that old saying. So, yeah, I mean, I think this was a big moment to go to the title page on. I do think it's interesting having a Lois who is not a reporter, because if I'm going to assume, and I think it's a fair assumption to make, that she's still going to inevitably fall for Superman, then having her fall for him when she's technically supposed to be his prison guard or something akin to that, is certainly a different dynamic to play with. So
Yeah. It's when they showed her and she has the dark hair, but it's really cut short. But her eyes are so kind of purpley. And I was like, this must be Lois.
of course you got it from her eye color.
Come on now.
You nerd. You're such a nerd.
Yeah, I am. And then she also is the first person to call him Superman in this book, right? And I don't know if this is something they've been calling him as they're trying to chase him down, but she's the first person in this to call him that.
And I think it's
interesting.
Yeah, it's when she's arrested him. She says, "Move and I fry your face, Superman." And Superman's in air quotes, so you can tell she's sort of saying it in kind of like a not a demeaning way, but like like they don't really know what to call him yet. Like, but he's been doing all this absurd stuff. Like one of the things they were saying when they were looking at the readings, like, his power levels are off the charts. This is insane. Like how strong he is, how fast he is, or whatever.
And the thing I like about it too is when you look at it, like he has this armor that's kind of around him, but it heats up almost like I don't know how to say it, like his extremities start to heat up. So his hands and feet, and it's almost like those are where the solar charge is being emanated from. It's a really cool look. So when she slaps the cuffs on the wrist, it's a big image.
Yeah. He also does that sort of solar blast thing that he's had in recent years, where he kind of does an uncontrollable heat vision explosion, which takes out all the guards. That's right before he gets arrested. But no, it's super interesting status quo. And then it seems like whoever's, I mean, I don't know if it's the person running Lazarus, but it certainly makes me think of Brainiac, this one page of someone who's green and there's like these 3 purple lights pointing down at him.
Yeah, out in the Nevada desert, it says it's the Lazarus Core R&D department.
Yes.
But there's also bottled things that are screaming in this monitor room. So yeah, very, very Brainiac-esque.
Yeah, the bottled. It's funny though, because those bottled cities or whatever they might technically end up being here, they'll almost look like bonsai trees just in a jar,
or like molds of stuff, like they look like bacteria colonies or stuff. But the one where it says "kill us, please kill us" actually looks like a city, kind of. But yeah, just definitely, and there's a lot of purples and greens and all that other stuff. So it definitely seems like someone that's using the Brainiac motif is working for Lazarus.
I mean, that's probably Brainiac sitting right there, I'd assume. But I mean, I don't know. It says a scrumptious new toy. Wonder where you came from. So maybe he's going to become obsessed with finding something Kryptonian based on Superman. And we just get a quick shot of the Kent farm. It says property of Lazarus. It's run down. Clearly, no one's living there right now. So, did he live with the Kents? I mean, we don't know.
It looks like something crashed through their roof.
Oh yeah, maybe he killed them by landing inside the house.
Yeah,
that would be the dark twist to this. So yeah, then we get the Krypton stuff that I mentioned earlier, where Jor-El comes back, and we get the reveal that young Clark is actually like a proper kid here. So
with crypto, no less. Right next to him.
I doubt he's called that though, right?
No, but still, it's definitely the imagery that's there. I mean, and I just wanted to point out too that it's funny that in Absolute Batman he has a mom, and as of right now, Superman has no parents. So it's almost like they've kind of swapped some things,
Yeah, kinda. And
it's like
in a weird way as well. They've kind of swapped like. Now, like Jor-El and Lara anyway, seems to be working on farms, which is something we typically think of the Kents as doing.
Right. So
there's some real switcheroos going on.
Yeah, and we get some a bit of ominous stuff in the final panel of it looks like that green stuff that was coming out of the mines is starting to sprout up around the L's farm.
Yeah, the ground. Yeah. So, I mean, did you like this, Matt?
Oh, I loved it. It's Jason Aaron, doing a populist kind of Superman, which kind of returns the character to his original roots back from in the 30s, and so the fact that he shows up and it's, not just to help the miners, but keep them out of the mines as they're being exploited, right? Because he's not like trying to just close down the mine. He's just trying to make their jobs easier so they're not exposed to as much asbestos, because like that snow, because the damage has already been done, right? So this is a Superman that's going around and doing things in his own way, to help the people, and not just, as that superhero in Metropolis. It's one of the things I love about Mark Waid's Birthright so much is a big chunk of the beginning of that is Superman going around the world as Clark, right, and helping people in need.
Yeah, that feels like that's the phase he's in right now in this universe to me. Yeah, I know he's already wearing the S and whatnot, but it feels like that's the phase he's in right now, is the going around and helping people before he becomes the public hero known as Superman.
And like when the kind of the mining leader tries to talk to him, he goes, "What's your name?" He goes, "I don't have a name anymore." Right? So he's doing everything in secret. He's not doing things to, he just wants a better life for people that I'm sure that he relates to, right? Like, because if this is familiar to what he remembers of Krypton, then he wants to at least try to save this planet from that happening,
I wonder if he actually has any natural powers, or he needs the suit, like, taking in the energy to actually use them. Like, does he have any natural power? Like, the X-ray vision would imply yes, but maybe the suit's still a part of that too. I don't know.
Maybe the suit helps channel it, right? And that's why, because when he has the big like supernova explosion, he's telling the suit or Soul, the AI, he's like, "All right, that's enough. I'm overloaded." So it's almost like it helps him, focus that energy, and which would make sense, because if he's like a living solar battery, and he's not quite in control yet, that would make sense.
But I'm wondering, does he even take in solar energy? Is this just something that his father designed for him so that he'd have an upper hand? Maybe physically he doesn't have any advantages. I mean, maybe he does, but like, I'm just because anything could be different here, and because his suit was glowing in this way, where the suit seemed to be the one taking in the energy. I don't know.
And we haven't seen him fly. We haven't seen him do the super speed. It's mainly like physical strength and vulnerability, and then like energy projection type stuff.
And the X-ray
which is a bit different. Oh, and the X-ray vision, but I would throw that under the energy kind of vibe. So maybe you're right. Maybe the suit and that charging thing, like that brings in the solar energy and then transfers it to him. And if that's the case, what happens if that gets into the hands of, the bad guys, which is something that we don't usually have to worry about with Superman, right? So, that would definitely be different.
Yeah. I mean, I could be completely wrong here. I'm just sort of spitballing based on, what we're seeing in this first issue. I suspect we will see him fly at some point. They might save it till like issue 6 or something like that, but I think they'll make
a big moment out of it, because, I mean, he does have the cape on the cover, and that is classic iconography of Superman. So yeah, I definitely think he'll fly. It'll just be this big, huge moment, I think.
Yeah. No, I liked that a lot as well. I think it really did a good job of building the world. If anything, I like the Krypton stuff even more than the Earth stuff. The Earth stuff's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like I think it's, he's got kind of this harsher attitude, but not in this, like, this isn't like Superman Earth 1 where I feel like, oh, you're just missing the point. This definitely feels like you're building a very different world's version of Superman. The Krypton stuff feels very fleshed out to me. It seems, I'm actually genuinely fascinated to see how this progresses to the end of that story, the end of Krypton, which I imagine we'll get to by the end of the first arc of the book via these flashbacks.
And having Clark there and experiencing that kind of does raise the stakes for how he's going to react here on Earth, which I do like. That's a little storytelling thing that
I think that makes sense, that he's a little bit colder and a little bit more cynical because he had to actually experience the death and the ignorance that led to it.
It's not hope, but it's not despair, right? Which makes sense in this world, right? Where it's kind of been molded by Darkseid. Because he still wants to help, but it's not like you said, he's very cold and just very methodical, and he's doing this just to help because he feels it's
more
right.
like Batman, is what you're saying.
I guess so, right? and so but yeah, he's not this bright, shiny, smiling guy that we're used to seeing. Like in any kind of Superman story, when he makes his kind of first appearance, it's this big, huge, bright,
Yeah, but honestly, the more I think about it, the more it is like Batman. Like he he saw like what happened to his parents, what the powers that be on Krypton did to his parents, and he specifically steps in this issue to stop that from happening to other people on Earth because he doesn't want to see it happen again. I mean, that's kind of what Batman's whole shtick is for the most part. Is, this happened to my parents. I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. So
of course,
obviously, I'm sure it'll progress beyond that. But I mean, very compelling so far. The art's really strong. I think it. Sandoval's a very. He's kind of like the upper tier of house style, where it's house style, but it's a very high quality house style that's always very pleasing to look at. Always very expressive. It always makes big moments out of the splash pages and what have you. And it makes you wait. Like, you see the S quite early because all the half the characters on Krypton are wearing it, but like it makes a big deal out of that first time you see it on Superman. Like when you see him actually standing up against the Peacemakers.
Big full page, he's dead center and people are behind him, right? So he's creating it's an actual S shield at that point.
I do wonder as well, like, does he progress to something that's a bit more recognizable as Superman in terms of personality, or is the point that he'll never quite become that because the world that he's in? I genuinely don't know. I could see it going either way, but be very curious to see how it progresses. Especially, I mean, obviously what they've set up for issue 2 is like, how is the early part of the Superman and Lois Lane story going to play out when they're at this very, very different starting point with each other?
I mean, because Lois has never been on the opposite side of him, right? Like, even as a reporter, she was reporting what he was doing. She wasn't trying to stop him from what he was doing. So
Matt, I feel like saying ever when we're talking about comic books is a stupid thing to say. Like, I guarantee you there's an issue somewhere.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. In the grand scheme of things.
I do know what you mean, but I'm just like, there'll be an anal commenter who'll be like, Adventure Comics number 182.
And to that I say, I love your encyclopedic knowledge, but that's not part of this lore, so we're fine. All right? Reset, rebirth, all that other stuff, all right? The Monitor says no. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
But,
when was the last time the word Lazarus was getting thrown around a lot? I feel like it was at some point during this show.
Was that?
Lazarus, the word Lazarus. When was the last time Lazarus was getting thrown around as a word that was being used a lot?
Probably the Lazarus Planet?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, but I'm wondering if that is going to be like, this version of Ra's al Ghul is about, he has the Lazarus Company, and it's this big multinational. He's kind of more of a Lex Luthor type, where that's how he's trying to preserve things by controlling everything and whatnot. Because I can't see what's up.
Like, if Ra's al Ghul is going to be one of the main nemesis of Superman in this world, then I feel like Lex has to be a Batman villain then in this world.
I mean, maybe. I'm just saying with the Lazarus name, it would be weird for it to be anybody else. Just because, again, this is still a familiar world. It's not just like the Tangent universe where it's just taking names and applying them to things. But I'm more than happy to be wrong, No,
I mean, I think it makes some sense that in this universe created by Darkseid and his image, that Ra's al Ghul has kind of succeeded in like controlling like the direction of humanity in the way he wants to, and that ultimately is personified or materialized in a company that he is using to control all of the wealth and power, and because it really feels that this is a very oppressive company that controls a bit of everything. The fact that it's also on the Kent farm saying property of Lazarus Corp, that just kind of gives you this idea that this is like bigger than, I don't know, Apple or something. Like, it's even bigger than that. It's like,
so if you guys are interested in this, if this really hit and scratched an itch, I do recommend there's an arc from Jason Aaron's Thor called The Last Days of Midgard that does, this kind of story of old King Thor in the future trying to restart Midgard after the end of the world. And it's also in the current present day, it's telling a story about Thor going up against Dario Agger, the CEO of Roxxon Corp. And Roxxon Corp is very similar to Lazarus in this, where they're just everywhere. There's Roxxon Gas, Roxxon Media, Roxxon, and in that, at a certain point, Roxxon ends up buying the city of Oklahoma that Asgard appeared over and bans Thor from going there. So now Thor has to find these workarounds to try to help the people from being exploited by Roxxon. So there's a lot of similarities, and you can tell that, Jason Aaron's very comfortable telling this kind of story. But yeah, so if you're digging this first issue and you kind of want a little bit more early, I would definitely check out Last Days of Midgard.
Yeah. All right. What you rating Absolute Superman?
Hold on to your horses. So I'm going to give this a 9.
Okay.
I was thinking you thought I was going to go through the 10, right?
I mean, you kind of set me up for it. He's made that sound like it was going.
That's a head fake.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking a 9 out of 10 about where I'd go as well. It's really strong in its narrative. It's got its own identity. It feels like it's setting up its own sci-fi world, as opposed to just being a typical Superman story, even though there's obviously a lot of those elements in there. But I mean, honestly, at this point, we're pretty much 3 for 3 on these Absolute books after the issue 1s. Now we'll see how they all keep up that momentum as they go forward. But having all the Trinity land in this Absolute line is not a bad thing to start with, certainly.
And I'm getting a bit over the cart here. I'm very curious to see how this Superman interacts with Wonder Woman and Batman, because they all seem like very loner types, and that's very smart for the Absolute universe, where Darkseid would not want the Justice League assembling at any point, right? Because they've always been a thorn in his side.
Yeah, but you know for a fact that there's probably going, if not like its own mini-series, some sort of crossover or something, like after they've all done their first arcs, I bet you were going to do a this is how they all first meet story.
But I'm very excited for that kind of thing, because I want to see the dynamics there, because they are also, solitary and singular so far through one. I mean, I know it's only one issue, right? But, they seem independent of other heroes. So it's very curious to see how they would react upon with each other. But yeah, just good stuff all around with this Absolute line so far.
Yeah. It's not really missed a step yet, honestly. So, very good. All right. Batman 154, Legacy number 919. Chip Zdarsky writing with Carmine D. Giandomenico on the art. So, yeah, very, very big art shift for this issue, because last one was Jimenez.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I like Giandomenico, and I love Jimenez. So, like, they're going to keep the Chip stuff, getting wonky. At least it's pretty to look at,
Yeah. I mean, I like Giandomenico. I have to say, though, I don't think he's right for Batman.
Okay, so what didn't work for you here?
I like, he works for Flash because Flash is all these colorful characters who move quickly. I don't think his art lends itself well to the more serious sort of, thriller elements of Batman and the darker colors. Like, I don't know, like, it's not bad art. It's still Giandomenico, but it doesn't quite fit Gotham for me. And it's not the first time I've said that, because he's done Batman before, and I've definitely said, it doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah. I liked it here because it seems like a bigger bombastic, like, it's like, yes, there's a noir element to it, but it seems like super large, like, we have the Court of Owls in play, and we have, some revelations that come out with some of the characters, and I just feel like it kind of fits that kind of spastic style of storytelling, so it really worked for me.
What you just said would be very problematic in the UK, but I
really?
I assume it doesn't mean what it means here in the US.
No. Like, kind of all over the place, right? Like,
yeah.
Do you want me to do a different take?
No. But
okay.
Just for anyone in the US, if you're ever in the UK, the word spastic is basically just as harsh as the R word here.
Oh no! I did not know. Apologies to the UK listeners. The R word's not in my vocabulary. It hasn't been in 20 years. So, I'm going to remove that from my thing. I'm going to look up, as you talk, I'm going to look up synonyms.
I mean, just Google that and then UK meaning or whatever. I'm sure you'll get some. Oh
no, I know what you mean. So, well, spotty's. I don't want to say spotty either, because I don't find the art spotty. I guess irregular fits.
Oh, you don't need another one for right now.
I'm just saying, it's an irregular style art for an irregular style story from Chip, So there we go.
There. Anyway, so yeah, the last issue, which was the first of this new arc, ended with the death of Mayor Nakano, which is what a lot of what this issue is about. Is looking into that crime, Batman and Gordon wanting to investigate it. Obviously, Gordon's not on the Force though, so Bullock's trying to play it safe by not letting them get too much access, because he doesn't want to get into trouble because he's just back on the Force. But he does, let them out of the crime scene after they're done with it and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, the murder investigation stuff I was kind of into. It's probably more of what I was enjoying here. I do think that some of the other elements felt a little bit more wonkier this issue compared to last.
Yes.
Such as the fact that all of a sudden there's this new character that Batman immediately believes is the new head of the Court of Owls, and all I could think was, okay, I get why he's suspicious, I get why he's involved in the case and why he's a person of interest. I don't know why you've jumped to he is the leader of the Court of Owls.
Right, and not just a member, right? Like,
yeah. Also, how
he could be...
How do you say his name? Leonid?
Let me look up. Leonid.
Leonid?
So, yeah, Leonid. So that's a type of owl, right? It's a yeah. So species of owls break into different kind, and the Leonid owl is kind of like I think it's like a snowy owl, or a barn owl, that type. They're the kind of longer ones that you see. But yeah, so I learned that last time because I looked up, this character to see if he'd been around before, and a thing that came up was like Leonid Owl. I was like, oh, okay, so he's using the one of the scientific terms.
Okay. Well, I mean, Nigma seems to be quite delighted that Nakano's dead, although does affirm that he had nothing to do with it. They all claim that, and I'm inclined to believe them just because. Like, it seems like it would be very unsatisfying if it was just them that had him killed, right? It feels like it would be more interesting if it's someone else. But, Batman gets very threatening, yada, yada, yada. It's a whole thing. He checks after, he looks at the dead body, tries to ascertain some extra details. There's more of this, like, woman who's running the company, Wayne Tech, who's advising Bruce on stuff. And we know she's secretly trying to get him to sell his shares to this long lost brother, which, and this is the stuff that he gets into where I'm like, okay, we're talking about Thomas Wayne maybe had an affair at the hospital with a nurse, sometime briefly, and then it sounds like that did happen and that Martha knew about it and they worked through it, but maybe there was an offspring from that that he didn't know about, and that's what's happening now. Is this whoever this is coming out of the woodwork. And asking for this, and but it does all feel like a bit of a sham though, because it feels like it's just all like, oh, to avoid all the legal embarrassment, you could just give him half your shares and then buy them back. And I'm like, Bruce, it's a trap. I will think you're such an idiot if you fall for any of this nonsense.
Yep.
So,
and I was like, oh, Bruce Wayne found some money. How can we get it back from him?
Yeah, so that's going on. There's a whole big bit though where like the protesters, because that was something they set up in the last issue, which was a fine idea, is that a lot of Gotham citizens are turning on Wayne Enterprises and stuff like that because and a lot of it's racist stuff. It's you're letting immigrants coming into the Gotham and not giving us jobs, blah blah blah. But Bruce, when they get hurt, but it turns into more of a riot and they're kind of storming into the front of the building. He goes out to try and basically fight them off as Bruce Wayne. And if anything, I would maybe critique the writing here and say that, are you not showing, like, usually Bruce is quite good with not showing that he's a good fighter to people. But here he's like sort of like really like grabbing this guy and like pinning him down, twisting his wrist.
But I would say that because there's a girl that Leslie Tompkins was setting her arm, right? And apparently she has a Russian accent. So one of the douchebag protesters goes after her, and that's where Bruce snaps. So I can kind of get the, this is a guy that's jumping in to defend.
I get him stepping in. Like, I expect him to jump in there, but like, I expect him to have more composure, I guess, and like sort of, just do enough to stop it, not like go all. Anyway, I had completely forgotten about Homelander in this book from last issue. I'd completely forgotten that this character existed until Commander Star swooped in during this riot scene.
I hate him so much in his big stupid collar. Just God, it's such a bad design. And maybe that's the point.
I think it is the point. I want to give it the benefit of the doubt and say that's just the point, but it's so egregious and just how bad everything is about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh dear. And then the end of the book happened, and I absolutely hated the ending and don't understand. Like, I'm assuming it's going to be, like Gordon's been like mind controlled or taken over with something or whatever. But they do a whole thing here where Bullock's on the phone to Batman and he's talking about Nakano's wife was having an affair, which makes her look quite suspicious in this whole thing. And then at the end of the book, Batman turns around to see Gordon pointing a gun at him because they were investigating the crime scene together. And Batman's like, "You're pointing a gun at me?" And he gets really angry. And I feel like, again, that felt out of character to me because, while I get Batman doesn't like having guns pointed at him, I think his reaction to Gordon pointing a gun at him would be more of, "Oh, something's not right here. There's clearly something wrong with you right now. Like, Gordon, talk to me. What's going on?" Like, it read weird for me for Batman to just instantly get angry to specifically Jim Gordon because it's clearly something's not quite right.
Well, and the idea that, like, Gordon is that afraid of Batman, like, he's shaking holding the gun. This is a guy that, has been on the force for decades, right? Like, so there's definitely something not right here.
Yeah, which is fine. That's clearly where the plot's going, but it came so out of nowhere here that it didn't feel like it was paying anything off to me. Like, if it was hinted earlier, because I think the implication here, because Gordon says, "I was defending myself, I didn't know how," and then, it progresses from there. Batman kind of interrupts him. The implication there that I think they're trying to at least make us think about is that maybe Gordon's the one that shot Nakano. Like, somehow someone used him to commit this murder, and that's what we're going to be investigating. I don't know if I love that direction in general, to be honest, but like, I feel like if there was something earlier on that hinted that Gordon was somehow connected to it, and this was the payoff to it, it would at least not feel so out of nowhere. But as it is, this weird ending where Batman gets angry and punches him, and then they both just sit down on the floor, like, all sad, for the to be continued. I was like, what the hell was these last 2 or 3 pages? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I had to go back and read the thing where it's revealed about Gordon twice. So I was like, wait, what is going on? There's no way this is true. And then when Batman turns around and looks, like, and Gordon's going, I didn't. And it's like, where did this come from? There was no hints, So, yeah.
Yeah, it also feels like, because you would think it would be triggered by whatever Batman said on the phone to Bullock, right?
Yeah.
Like, there was a piece of evidence that linked Gordon to it, so Gordon like almost instinctively acts out from his mind control or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's not. Like, Bullock's just telling Batman about the wife having an affair, unless they're implying that the affair's with Jim Gordon, which would even be weirder.
That's what I read it as. That's why I had to read it twice. And again, there's been nothing in this with Nakano. With Mrs. Nakano and Gordon.
If that's what's going on, then this is the most batshit out of left field nonsense I have read in a comic book in some time.
Which, again, that fits Zdarsky.
It kind of does in a weird way.
So
needless to say, I was relatively kind of positive on the last one. This one, I'm a lot more in the he's doing a lot of things I'm not feeling now.
Well, like, all the intrigue with the court just kind of goes away when you see him eating dinner with Nigma, right?
Yeah, actually, on that, can we just talk about that? The Court of Owls, like, especially, like, they always had a thing where they'd have their hands in the pies of Gotham, right? And they'd have people that are working for them in the companies to drive things in certain directions and whatnot. But the idea of, like him sitting down with Edward Nigma knowing he's from the Court of Owls, and it's like a deal he's made with the court. I feel like the court doesn't make petty deals with criminals for...
The court's not a mob, right? They're like a social class. And that does not ring true, because in the first issue of this arc, he's doing that kind of thing, going around and making these deals as a representative for the Court of Owls, right? Do
you know what I think it is? It's not even so much that he's making a deal with people. It's more that he's so smug and villainous in this scene with Edward when Batman comes in, and he's like basically gloating to Batman that there's nothing he can do about it. I was like, this doesn't feel like a Court of Owls character. Court of Owls tends to be very like, we're above you, We hold ourselves pridely, and we do not have a shred of humor in our bones. But this guy is smirking, and he's like, "Oh, I'm a villain, and I'm going to enjoy the," and a very used car salesman kind of glee that he's got about him.
Yeah. And what if, again, we think that he's with the Court Owls, what if he's not, right? Like,
he claims he is, but...
Yeah, but, this is very sloppy for the Court Owls, Also, I like it better when they're creepy, right? Like in that Christian Ward book, they just always have just like a creep vibe to them.
Yeah, there's no mystique to this. Like,
no.
The Court of Owls, it's like, oh, they could be anywhere and they could be behind anything. This just feels like, oh no, it's just a mob boss who's gloating.
Yeah.
I don't know,
he's not even a good one at that because he's doing stuff in the open. Like,
it just didn't feel like the Court of Owls. Like, you're telling me this guy's leader of the Court of Owls. Maybe they've changed because he's got different ideas how to run them, but it just kind of goes against what I think of when I think of the Court of Owls.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I felt hoodwinked because I did like that first issue, and this one I'm reading it and I'm trying to remember certain things. I read way too many comics, right? And then it starts clicking, and I was like, oh yeah, the Court. Oh wait, this is not how the Court acts. This is not what he was doing in the last issue. And I was like, Zdarsky strikes again.
Yeah, that first issue in the arc was like, you know what, that was actually pretty good, barring this weird Homelander dude showing up. But, maybe we'll see where it's going. Here, it's like, the Homelander dude's like the least of my concerns after this issue.
This stupid collar. God, I hate that thing.
Oh, dear. So yeah, a lot more mixed on this, maybe even negative. It kind of depends what they do with some of these things. Like, is this actually the Court of Owls? If it is, then I think I might have some problems with how they're being portrayed. Like what's actually going on with Gordon here at the end. I don't buy for a second that Gordon just killed someone, or that he was having an affair.
Especially the mayor.
Yes.
Like, come on.
Which, and okay, I'm not. I don't think he necessarily did. But I'm not even sure that there's even a story about him being brainwashed or mind controlled or whatever it could be. Like, I don't know if there's any of those options sounds that satisfying. So I don't know what explanation they've got cooking up for me that I will find remotely exciting, never mind actively annoying. So, or never mind not actively annoying. You know what I mean? Anyway.
I hear what you meant.
Yeah, so Zdarsky's Batman once again is
it is such a hot and cold mixed bag,
and to top it all off, I didn't think Domenico's art worked well with Batman and made everything feel a bit too, I don't know, cartoony, I guess, for lack of a better word, just to sum it up. But
yeah, I think it pairs with Zdarsky's writing pretty well.
that's not being kind though, Matt. Come on.
Oh, that's it. I think I enjoyed the art a bit more than you. There's a lot of cool stuff with the coloring. Like, there's a page towards the end where it's almost like not quite a gradient, but it's when Batman is talking to Bullock, and it's just the changing in the settings and the way that the coloring works. I feel like it flows super well, and stuff. But yeah, I thought the art was the least of my issues this time around.
Sure. All right, what are you giving Batman?
6.
5. All right. Action Comics 1074, Mark Waid writing with Clayton Henry on the art. So, Superman went to Krypton. It's kind of a weird week for this because Absolute Superman also being largely on Krypton. And as I was describing stuff in Absolute Superman earlier, I was kind of like almost veering into describing this book instead. Yes. And I had to catch myself and stop. So
big week for Jor-El.
Yes, it's a big week for Jor-El. So Superman, interestingly, realizes, be kind of hard to explain the whole House of L symbol on my chest. So he kind of like wraps his cape around him in a way to hide his symbol so that he's like a stranger in Krypton. And he's like, and this is actually something I don't think we really thought about when we read the last issue, is that his first concern more than anything is trying to figure out where in the timeline he is, because he's concerned, like, wait, am I close to the destruction? Because that's the problem if I am. And sure enough, there's tremors like very quickly, and he's like, oh shit, like Krypton's days are numbered and I'm here. Oh no.
Also, the way he covers up the S and turns his cape inside out, he's kind of never resembled Jesus more than wrapping that around him. So I'm just saying, it's a good look though. I'm not adverse to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Superman's better than Jesus. There, I said it.
Oh boy, that might get me into trouble in this country in a couple of years.
Hey, at least Superman's fans all agree that he is fictional.
Pete, stop, please.
I'm just trying. I'm just trying to get people out of trouble. Namely me.
Yeah, no kidding. Actually, I didn't say. Just freedom of religion. Eat it. I'm not actually afraid. That was a bit. So, anyways,
yes.
back to my Lord and Savior Superman.
Yes. So, and obviously Mon-El's stuck with Ether. There's not really much to say there other than just he's there with him. Our mini kind of like backup that's in the middle of the book with Connor and Keenan kind of progresses a little bit, where a bunch of angry aliens, the Coons, show up because they've also had some artifacts stolen, and because they're very vengeful, they want to like just kill everyone that's involved and leave no trace. And our two Superboys decide to try and intervene. It's basically just all set for a punchline because Connor's like, we could take a little platoon of the Coon, that's no big deal. And then the last page of this bit is like Keenan looking up and there's like an entire armada in the sky. He's like, I'm never listening to you again.
Why do I listen to you? So I love because Keenan doesn't know, right? Keenan's not a intergalactic Superman character, right? He stays on Earth and in China and whatnot. So when he asks for the
he's
Coons,
also very new as well, so he's not had a chance to really do any of this.
To interact with all of them. But so when he asked, who are the Coons, and he's like, Mongol, right? You remember that guy? Think about like 3/4 Mongol, 1/4 doorknob. And I was like, that's a perfect description of the Coons. Essentially, they're space orcs. And so, yeah, them showing up to try to get their treasures back, but also take the other treasures with them.
I could have never remembered. Like, see if you said describe the Coons, I'd be like, I have no idea. I know they pop up in space stuff every once in a while, and I recognize the name when it comes up because they always, pepper them in. But it's not like the Dominators. Like, if I see a Dominator, or if you said, what's a Dominator, I'd be like, oh, I can describe a Dominator.
Yeah. The big nasty teeth, big red circle on the forehead.
I think traditional alien head.
Yeah.
But with this circle and the big teeth.
But but like with the Coons, I definitely always think of space orcs,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But
but the bulk of the story is in Krypton, though. It's Superman, and basically he's like, well, first of all, there's a little bit of very on the nose commentary, where he talks about how the fact that he collapsed at the end of the previous scene after the tremor, he was rushed to a local medical facility where he was fixed up, given clothes, and all of it was free of charge. And I couldn't help but feel that Mark Waid was just putting in a little bit of writing about his own country during that. Of course.
Also, when you said local medical facility, I instantly thought wrestling.
Yeah, because that's what they always say. Yeah,
that's what they always say. But I was like, wait, you could say hospital, but Clark doesn't even say hospital, right?
Yeah, that's why I said it that way, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So... yeah, fair enough. Krypton's all out of Scotland, apparently. So, other than that, he wants to find out if there's a way if he can charge his solar bracelets, but the red sun here just isn't going to cut it. It's too weak and whatnot. So he's like, okay, well, there's tons of scientists in the city, but like there's only one that he knows the name of, really. Cut to him at a big building that has a Superman logo on it because it's clearly this is Jor-El's place.
This is my dream. I would love to paint this on my garage, but the HOA won't let me. So,
So yeah, he meets his mother, who's holding a baby him, which tells us it is very soon to the end of Krypton because he's not that much older when he gets in that rocket ship. But we also see that Jor-El's having a lot of trouble with the science committee or whatever they're called. So he's livid that they're not letting him explore things, that they're being too stubborn about the dangers of the planet and what's happening to it. But he ultimately does speak to Superman and is like, oh, these bracelets you want to help me with, these are very fancy, they're very advanced. Oh, where did you get these? So he's helping away. We see a little bit of his lab, and Superman kind of like thinks to himself that his dad's a lot more like Willy Wonka than he thought because there's like so many weird inventions in here. He clearly experimented with a lot of stuff.
I love that because we always get he's one of the brightest minds on Krypton. And then Clark's like, oh no, he's Willy Wonka, like brilliant mind, weird interests, you know? So
yeah, I mean, I think where this is going, what the implication I got from this, because the end of this scene is obviously that Roseanne, the head of the council, or I don't know if he's the head of the council, but he's a prominent member of the council, bursts in with some troops and confiscates the Phantom Zone projector as well as Superman's solar bracelets. I'm like, okay, I think we're going to exonerate Jor-El a little bit in this story, and we're going to find out that Jor-El didn't want to actually use the Phantom Zone for a prison. He wanted to use it to basically let all of Krypton evacuate into it when the planet was going to die. That was his first plan, and instead it's the council that took it and used it as an imprisoning device. So that feels like
that also makes it seem like, right, there's all of these, like they call Clark in the Phantom Zone their jailer's son. But so I was always under the impression that the Phantom Zone stuff was used far before Clark was born. And this is clearly, it seems like it's leaning towards after. So,
this is making it seem like it's a pretty new thing, right? Like, this is something they only did in the last, like, maybe year or even few months of Krypton. Which is, it does feel like a bit of a change. I think that's fair. I'm off two minds of it, because on the one hand, I really like the idea that the Phantom Zone was Jor-El's like idea of like, oh, this is how we can save everyone. I've actually got this weird dimension that I can take everyone in Krypton and safely put them somewhere so we don't all die when the planet explodes. I actually think that's a really interesting little spin on that. I don't know if it's ever come up before, if this is Mark Waid has just thought of it, but either way, I do think it's a really cool idea. At the same time, though, I also feel like Clark dealing with the idea that Jor-El did something that he doesn't maybe like morally is an interesting thing. Jor-El was a good man, but he wasn't perfect, and he did something that he disagrees with. I think exonerating him from that always makes the story slightly less interesting in that aspect.
Yeah, because I kind of like the Oppenheimer vibe of here's this thing that he helped create that is no longer his once he turns it over. Right?
Yes, I have become death, destroyer of worlds.
and that kind of thing where he had the noblest of intentions of figuring this stuff out, right? Because he wanted to evacuate the planet. However, once the Science Council took it and started using it as a prison, that was out of his hands. So I could kind of see that, that tried to make it work for both worlds. But yeah, the exoneration of that does make Jor-El that, not less interesting as a character.
Just more of the traditional goody two shoes that we always assumed he kind of was. Although I will say it also does paint an interesting picture, because the fact that all the criminals are saying, oh, Jor-El was our jailer, that says to me that the council, when they start using it as a prison device, like brand it as Jor-El invented this. This is Jor-El's doing.
Regards from the House of L. Zap.
Like Jor-El's name's been plastered all over it when he's like, no, that wasn't meant for that.
Out of my hands now, I developed it, you misused it,
So I like that from like a sort of the political side of the Krypton lore being played with. So I think there's positives and negatives to where I feel like this is going, but it's well told. Obviously the thing here is that at the end of the scene, the end of the comic even, Roseanne says, oh, arrest the L's and whoever this stranger is that's trying to keep these bracelets from me. So yeah, we'll see where that goes.
I wonder what kind of butterfly effect this is going to have, right? Because Jor-El and Lara being imprisoned, before Krypton explodes. That seems to be new.
I mean, I assume they're going to be out of there though before the end.
I know that, but still, it's just one of those things. If you think about it too much, it's kind of like the Back to the Future kind of thing. How come they don't remember Marty? But it's like, do you really remember that one guy that you met? For a week.
That's not a factor here, Matt, because they're going to be long dead before Superman.
Yes,
up.
I know that, but I just wonder what kind of butterfly effect that Clark being there is going to have down the way. But yeah,
I don't know.
I do like that he gives himself the Krypton name Clark Kent. That funny.
That made me laugh actually, because he has to think of a secret identity in his narration as he puts it. And he sort of like just thinks on the spot and goes, I'm Clark Kent. And I'm like, you just took Clark Kent and made it sound Kryptonian. That's funny.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, that's fair.
Enjoyed that.
Yeah. And in the backup, With Supergirl, I am still very much enjoying it. I have no idea what's going on with this prisoner character, though.
Me neither. I was like, I'm enjoying it. The art is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I love the characterization of Kara. I have no idea what's going on at this point.
Art is great, right? Kara being like held captive after the prisoner's been kidnapped, and she's basically trying to use her different powers, and some of them are kind of backfiring. She tries to use her freeze breath on her hands to try and like break the whatever the restraints are, and it ends up spreading, and then she has to use her own heat vision to melt herself out of the ice. But then the robot who's looking for a purpose, the security bot, comes in and says, "Oh, I have found my purpose. I will help you." And she's like, "All right, get me out of this." So that stuff's all fun. And she goes looking for the prisoner. And we also see that the prisoner's been auctioned off on some sort of alien black market thing. But then when we get to the prisoner, this is where stuff gets really weird, is the prisoner is like, the narration is like talking to the prisoner and saying, I have found you again, yes. And then it seems like the prisoner finally speaks and says no to whatever's talking to him or her. I mean, it could be either, it's hard to tell. And just as Kara finds the cell, punches her way into it, we get what I can only describe as like a weird David Lynch moment, where the prisoner's like holding their hand up, and the narration says, "I have found you now, and I will have you again. Our work is not over." And Supergirl just says, "What the hell's happening?" And you get a close up of the prisoner's like helmet, like with the visor, and it looks like a hand in the helmet's like visuals are coming towards like its own face, or that's what's on the screen from the visor.
Yeah, is it a reflection? Is it coming through the visor? Like what is it? It's definitely unsettling.
I have no idea. But the final line in the narration is, "We will be one once more." So certainly it sounds like an entity was split, or two entities which have been entwined were split and want to reunite. Now, other than that, can I discern a single goddamn thing? No, I can't. It's weird. It's interesting though, and the art's gorgeous.
And I have enough faith in Tamaki that it'll come around, because we're getting these little chunks, and I'm sure once the picture starts to get more clear, we'll look back.
Yeah, and it's not frustrating though, because Supergirl is just as confused as we are. So it's not like the characters are acting like this is normal, there's nothing weird happening. Like, her only line of dialogue in the last page of this book is "what is happening," and that mirrors exactly how we feel. So you feel like you're with her on the journey. So yes. But weird backup.
DC and these little space robots, giving them the personality, I'm for it. Because first we had Punchbot.
Oh yes,
with Jason Aaron in Offworld, and now we have this helper bot that wants to help Kara. So loving that. But yeah, I know that last page with the image at the top where the prisoner is reaching up, and then we get the triangles, that cut down the middle, with Kara there. I don't know how else to describe it. It makes like a rectangle, and then you get two of these triangles in that rectangle that make it up. The composition is fantastic. Yeah.
That was a weird way I got around explaining it, but yeah, it's good. All right, what are you giving Action Comics?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with just a straight 8. Just because it's kind of what I said last time, which is like, Clark's going to be in Krypton, and it would be a big deal if they've only ever done it once, but they've not. So. But still, though, interesting things they're exploring for sure. I had a good time with this 12-issue arc. So cool. Batgirl issue 1, Tate Brombal writing with Takeshi Miyazawa on the art. So we got a new Cassandra Cain Batgirl book, and it freaking rocked. If I can be so bold.
She's such a simple character, so when they can really lean in to what makes her work, it just makes whatever story she's in.
Yeah, this felt
fantastic.
So old school to me in all the best ways. It felt like a Cassandra Cain comic from the 2000s, except for the fact that she talks a bit more because she's she's more experienced and she's older. But like, her narration is just all these one words, like glance, touch, heartbeat, smile, as she's looking at Lady Shiva, obviously her mother, and just like Cass saying things like, "I do not believe her. She is lying." She's reading her through body language, which is the first language she ever learned. And it's like, that's like a core part of this. And the plot of this is basically Lady Shiva's here to say to Cass, hey, we need to run away together because there's a group of bad guys coming to kill both of us. And we have to go. And Cass is basically, piss off, I'm not going with you.
You're a liar. Yeah. Every time we've done this thing, it's been some manipulative, you know.
And she killed a security guard. It was like a dead guard, like lying on the floor. And because Cassandra's like, "Who is this? You killed someone. No killing. It's that simple."
Well, and I love that she was like, "I required privacy," and this imbecile challenged. And then when Cass is like, "No killing," she just puts her hands up, like, "All right, you got me. I'm not going to try to lie here." You know, again, the art really sticking through. Or showing through here. Yeah,
I really liked here as well. Is like the art is excellent. And I'm not familiar with this artist that well, but one of the things that I really liked about it is that when she's trying to convince Cass, and Cass is reading her, right? So we get it's basically just Lady Shiva's talking and saying, "Oh, these armed guys are coming. They're train killers. They're going to get us. We have to leave. Understand?" And Cassie's narration is just desperate and then not lying. And then Lady Shiva says, "Read me, daughter. Read my body language like I taught you. I do not lie." And in that panel at the bottom, when Cass starts speaking, the way she looks at her, like, I love the expression, and which is saying something, because Cassie's outfit obviously means you can't, like, you've only got a certain ways you can make her express.
Yeah.
But the expression reads as, like, okay, I hate to admit that I know she's not lying, but that doesn't mean that she trusts her. It doesn't mean that she's willing to jump in with both feet. It felt there was a lot of performance in that reaction to that sentence, "I do not lie," and the reluctance to accept it, but knowing that it's true. So she has to at least pay attention to what she's saying.
Well, and then that comes around towards the end of the book too. You know, the end of the issue about Shiva lying or not, and so It really sets that. That's kind of the keystone of this issue, is that "I do not lie" and Cass's reaction to it.
Yeah. And Cass, of course, says "I do not lie" in her narration to be like she's chosen not to lie. My favorite part of all this, which is during the fighting, and the fighting is great. Like, all these blue outfitted assassins like jump in the window. They're kind of like ninjas, obviously.
Yeah.
And they come to attack them, and fight ensues, and it's a whole thing. But Cass has got a great monologue, effectively, in her narration as this is happening, and she starts to fight, where she basically talks about how she does the whole "My name is Cassandra Cain. I am Hal Jordan, Green Lantern of Sector 2814." She kind of does that shtick.
I'm Wally West, the fastest man alive.
There you go, more of that. But she's like, "Oh, I was bred to be the perfect weapon. I was raised to be like a killer. I was raised to read my victim's next move." I love the use of the word victim as well. She doesn't say opponent, she says victim, because it's her acknowledging what she was actually supposed to be doing.
She was made to be the perfect weapon, right?
But she's like, "I didn't choose any of this. But what I did choose, I didn't choose my origins, I didn't choose anything. But I did choose my current family. I did choose to be an orphan. I did choose to be Batgirl. I did choose to not kill, and I did choose to, this whole monologue that she makes during this fight scene. Like, I loved it. It was like a mission statement for the character. It was like, hey, if you don't know who Cassandra Cain is, this gets across so much of it in such a nice, succinct way. But it felt like it was spoken in her voice, because it was this broken up narration of just little bits at a time.
Yeah, and the fact that she says, because I'm Batgirl, and no one, not even my mother, will ever take that from me. This is the choice that she made. Yeah. This is who she became. And that why she might be Shiva's daughter, right? That wasn't her choice. But Batgirl is. And I really love that summation as they're teaming up to beat the piss out of these blue ninjas.
Yeah, no, I love it. And that whole thing ends with her saying, "Read me, I do not lie," which is what Shiva said to her, but now Cass is saying it to us. Cass is saying it to the audience. It's kind of a declaration of like who she is, and it paints a picture of this really strong character who knows who she is, and for all the things that Cass might seem young and innocent and all the rest of it, there's like some real beauty in the sense of like how well she understands herself and how she's found her purpose and who she is. So the action's fun. Shiva like jumps out the window with her and tells her to fly, i.e. glide with her cape. Which she does. And Cass actually Batman's out of the scene. Like Shiva like stands up, says, "Okay, finally you're on my side, daughter. Now this is where we're going to go." And she explains our next part of her plan. She turns around and she's gone, and she's like, "Oh, that's her father's influence." Which references something Cass like said in her narration earlier, where she said, "I'm Batman's daughter by choice." So,
which I love that too, right? Because that's her choice. That's the parent. Like she goes, "I'm an orphan by choice, but I'm Batman's daughter by choice." Which means she found her family. She found where she belonged. And so when she does the Batman out of the situation, it gets, because the art there, it's got Shiva in the middle of this road, and she looks very small.
Yeah. It's funny because when you compare them and think about it, like Cass is like the very sweet, nice version of Damien. Damien's like kind of similar. He's bred to be a certain thing. He's supposed to have all these things, and he's has this destiny as the future, demon or heir to the bat, whatever one it is, and he's a little shit about it. Whereas Cass is like got this very Cass is like the monk version of Damien.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it.
Because she is humble, right? Because she knows. And like she knows to hold back, and Damien's like, "Why are we holding back? We're Batman's kids. We can do what we want." And she's like, "Yeah, but not really." So yeah, I like that dynamic.
She has inner peace, which is just something that
what's that?
Damien will be lucky if he ever encounters it. But then there's an explosion at the temple that she was going to go to, and then Cass pops back into the scene, which has actually almost made me laugh that she disappeared out of the scene and then popped back in as soon as an explosion happened, which made me think, oh, you were just like hiding behind a car on the side. Like you hadn't left the scene. You were just like, okay, I'm hiding until Shiva walks away and then I can leave.
Yeah. It's that thing where Batman's hiding on the other side of the door going like, "Don't come through here, don't come through here, don't come through here." Right? But yeah. And here's the thing, she has a temple to her. Is that a new thing with Shiva? Because I'm not that familiar. I know she's like the most deadly killer in DC, but when she said her temple and there's there's like the Order of Shiva, is that something new or is that something that's always been around?
It didn't sound surprising when she said it, so it feels...
I wasn't shocked. I was shocked. I wasn't like surprised by it. I just didn't know if that was something that's always been in the lore or not.
I don't remember is the honest answer, Matt. I don't remember.
I'm gonna look while we go through this now.
So they run up to the building, and there's like one like guy who's still kind of alive, and Cass is trying to like see if there's any survivors and help them. Arrows start flying into the building, and Shiva catches one that was about to hit Cass, and she calls Cass sloppy, and sort of chastises her with a smirk in her face for it. So the Blue Ninjas come in, and we get a bit more of a sort of standoff where they kind of surround Shiva, and she's goes into like and again the art here is pretty good because she goes into kind of like a martial arts pose, but it's like one of the more kind of like unique ones where it's like sort of like tiger claws she's doing. Anyway, the big final page though is like Cass making the choice to jump in and help her fight, and being like, I am Batgirl, I am all the things I said, but tonight I have to be her daughter and she's my mother. So yeah, because Shiva says test your luck, and Cass jumps in and says no luck, only us, which is kind of a badass line actually. It's a great final page as well because there's like fire spreading around the building around her, so Cass is just kind of standing in the flames. Yeah, I really like this. It was a super easy read for a start. It flowed really well. I thought the voice for Cass was down. I think the way she was kind of like playing off of her mother really like had a great rhythm to it because it's Cass rejecting everything, but ultimately she's going to not be able to resist helping her because she's too good of a person. And then the action looked great. I don't know. I was very, very happy with this.
Yep, me too. Well, and that's the thing. I was looking up to see if the Order of Shiva, that seems to be something that's newer. I'm not seeing it come up in any of the Google searches. But the whole thing where she says, it's the difference from the glance, heartbeat, smile, right? Where at the end it says sweat, dilate, quiver, she's lying. And the time that she lies is when she says that, oh, my daughter means nothing to me. So kill me, but spare her because she has no part of this, and that was Shiva's kind of move to save Cass. And the fact that,
that's what inspires Cass to jump in effectively, is that she can tell she's lying now when she says something like that.
Yeah, because this running theme of they don't lie, right? And all of this stuff is so different now. These are the tells that Cass can see in her first language. And that's what makes her go, oh no, she's lying to save me. She's going against what she normally does. And I thought that was actually really beautiful storytelling.
Yeah. Although Shiva got such an evil smirk in her face in that last page, like I'm like,
I got her.
It feels like she was playing her, like at some level. I mean, I think Cass knows she's being played to some extent, but I think Shiva is like, oh, I played a card there and it worked.
Yeah. Well, and so in these blue ninjas, I don't know if you said that they're called the Unburied, and there's something that's happened that they're coming after Shiva and Cassandra, and I'm wondering who else, from the martial arts kind of things, if they're going to show up. But yeah, they're very kind of League of Assassins, but just a little bit off, right? Very, very similar.
Yeah, okay. They're an army of ninjas. They're always going to be compared to the League of Assassins because that's the main one we've got in DC. So, no, I love this. Art was great. Voice for Cass was great. Simple story, simple payoff that really worked. And the writing, the way it came back around again at the end with the lie. No, excellent. I honestly really probably couldn't ask for more for an issue 1 of a new Cassandra Cain book.
We're feasting with Batgirl stuff right now. It's ridiculous.
I know.
I love it.
All right, what are you rating Batgirl?
I'm gonna give it a 9.
Yep, I agree. 9 out of 10. Loved it.
I thought you were gonna go 9.5.
Come on, I can show some restraint.
Yes, I can't.
That's my choice. All right. Birds of Prey issue 15, Legacy number 213. Kelly Thompson writing with Sami Basri on the art. So we got more Cassandra Cain to talk about, as well as some other ladies. So Cassandra Cain was undercover in this evil company who's kidnapped some Amazons, and the Birds of Prey are trying to help get them out. This issue kind of spins it around though, and it turns out that this evil company have been kidnapping these Amazons, and they've kind of like basically enslaved them or bought them on the black market in the wake of all the stuff going on with the war of between the US and the Amazons that's been going on in Wonder Woman. So it's all sort of playing in continuity. But very quickly early on, it turns out that they're kidnapping anyone who they think is a good, not even a good fighter necessarily, but just anyone who's of value, anyone who is interesting, I guess.
It's definitely a take on human trafficking.
Oh,
right?
For sure, yeah.
So it's like this big company, and they're setting traps to bring these women in, and then they're using them for their own purposes.
It's like human trafficking, but you're targeting people who, in theory, are the strongest.
Yes.
You're not going for the weakest people; you're going for the strongest women, and still try to trap them anyway. And it turns out this whole thing was a trap to get Cassandra Cain. Now they don't know she's Cassandra Cain; they still think she's whatever the her alias is.
Yeah.
But they are there to get her, and they sort of try and gas her and try and grab her, and Cass violently tries to get away. She covers her mouth, she jumps up to the air duct, and she's able to send out a quick message, or tries to at the very least, but ultimately can't, and falls into the room and passes out.
Because she gets clipped by a bullet too. Right?
On the shoulder, yeah. Quite right. But that message I don't think gets out, because the way the Birds of Prey talk about the fact that they've not heard of her in the next scene made me think that they've not heard any of that message. So so that's your exciting big opening action sequence to get things going, is Cassie's abduction there. The Birds of Prey stuff though is very good too. It's very sweet because Barda is pissed because Barda's getting worried about Cass, and throws a table through a window, and they're all like, "Oh, someone needs to calm down Barda. What's going on here?" So there's a moment here where I think it's later on. It's when Black Canary goes to talk to Barda, and there's a little line beforehand where I'm going to go and talk to Barda about her temper right now, and Babs is like, I wouldn't, and she's like, I'll give her a wide berth, and then Babs just whispers, better be from the moon, And I don't know,
Yeah.
that gave me a good chuckle.
Mhm.
But yeah,
She goes, I heard that.
yeah,
As they're going. So yeah, they got the dynamics down here, which we've known from the beginning of this book.
yeah. No, it's
Um,
just it's firing on all cylinders here. Even the running gag here, the two Amazons that are sort of with the team right now
mhm,
are like scared of training with Barda right now because she's already
mhm.
like, she's already tough to deal with, but now she's like pissed off.
She's angry. Yeah.
Yeah. And then later on, when they're like just playing her at video games, they're like, we just want to win at something. We have to win it against Barter at something.
Mhm.
But for me, the really interesting stuff here, though, is a couple of different scenes. One, there's a scene here where Canary goes to talk to Barda, and basically calms Barda down by saying, "You're overly worrying that Cass is in trouble, is disrespecting how like you're
Capable.
yeah, you're basically saying that you don't think she's got the ability to like you respect her because you think she's exceptional, but by being worried right now as much as you are, you're saying that she isn't exceptional. So you wouldn't want her to think that, would you? And Barda admits, you know what, you're actually a pretty good leader, Black Canary. That was quite well done. So I thought that was quite good.
Well, and that's a way that Barda is going to understand that, right? She was supposed to lead the female Furies. She wants to hone in their exceptionalism and this, that, and the other. And so by her Canary reminding her, you're not with the female Furies anymore, right? These are all very capable. We're all very capable women. And we wouldn't have sent Cass in there if we didn't think she could handle it. So just trust in the system a little. And then that's where Barda, just that whole scene where her demeanor changes just a little bit, where with Basri's art, where this is phenomenal. There's like a slight smile there on that last panel.
And it's very slight, but it is there.
Yeah, but like it worked so well.
Yeah, you got that. You've got a scene where Canary talks to Sin about why she's not feeling too great, and Sin basically says she feels kind of weird about being on the C team, like what's going on, and she's like, "There's no such thing as the C team. What are you talking about?" It's like, "Well, yeah, I am in the C team," and she kind of basically outlines why it's the C team in this plan. And she's like, okay, you're kind of in the C team, but it's because this whole thing with Madeira is new, right? You're still getting a hold of that, and so outlines the whole reasons. But it's all very reasonable, and Sin kind of admits that, and so yeah, that was all very reasonable. But admits that it still sucks being on the backup team, and Canary says, yeah, no one likes it, but it's kind of just them bonding a little bit. It gives them a little bit of one-on-one time. And then the video game that Barda's playing with the Amazons is like Barda showing them how she like beat up Wonder Woman on Themyscira in the first arc.
Kind of, right? Yeah.
Right? Except she's like embellished it a little bit because she straight up does the Bane backbreaker to I mean, it's not two Wonder Woman in the video game because like basically it's the Amazon she's playing against, like it's just themselves in the video game, and she's like, and that's what I did to Wonder Woman. She's all proud of it.
And then she's like, and much to your chagrin, Diana got up faster than you did.
Yeah. And then Sin comes in, and apparently Sin can beat her at Pokemon, so they really want to see her lose at something, because they just want to see Barda lose anything.
But it was only the cards, not the games, and anything counts. Like, we don't care.
And for the record, they did set up at the start of this middle section of the book that there's like a second like time where they're expecting Cass to try and contact.
Yep.
So they're waiting until that second time has passed before they go in guns blazing to try and like save her or whatever. So that's why they're just kind of chilling for now. Like, because I realized that if you didn't explain that part, it'd be like, wait, why are they just sitting around? Why aren't they going to try to help her? So you got that. And then the book sort of goes to its sort of third section, which is Cass waking up in a cell in some underground prison, presumably under the building she was in before, but it's got tons of women been held captive here, separate from the Amazons that were in the big test tubes that she saw in the lab. And yeah, Cass immediately starts trying to figure out ways to get out. Like, what can she do here? And she realizes she can't get out of the cell, so she jumps up to the ceiling and like disconnects the light. And when the bad guys, again, I've not really described them in this issue again because I did it last time, but like one guy's got like a sort of toga thing on, like he's kind of like a hippie.
He looks like a Krishna wearing white.
Yeah. And there's like a sort of short-haired blonde woman, like a sort of very suave red suit. There's like a nervous scientist, and then kind of the security guys, this bald guy with a beard.
Yeah.
But basically, they noticed her lights out, and they're like, "Wait, what's going on here? How did the light turn off?" And like the hippie guy's like, "Oh, camera's down. I'm going to open the door." And the woman in the red suit's like, "No, you idiot! Why would you do that?" And of course, as soon as that happens, and the art's great here because you see Cass, who's like up in the ceiling, like River and Serenity, like holding on to the edges. She then flips out the top of the entrance when they come in to check and see where she is. So yeah, she ends up like sneaking around, and they have to try and find her. The big end of the issue is that they're like, "Hey, let's test that thing we've got," and like, "Are you crazy? You can't let that loose down here." And it turns out that they've been experimenting on some people, and that one of their failures is some sort of scary monster, possibly a werewolf. I mean, I'm only guessing that based on the last page because you see a hand, but they basically, they shut down this entire basement prison area so no one can get out, because they say, okay, she's got out of her cell, but there's no way out of this entire section, so we'll release this monster, and that's kind of the cliffhanger we get, is Cass encountering this.
Kind of like, let her run to the labyrinth, she'll never get out.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And a thing I like in the art here that Basri does is that anytime you see Cass's shadow in these tunnels, it makes a bat.
Yes, yeah, she also
which is a real nice touch.
Nah, it's good stuff. Now this has been a fun arc so far, because like obviously it gave us this taste of Cass acting very like different because she's doing an undercover job, which is different for her. But then it's given you this like, oh, this is how capable she is, even in this situation where she's been kidnapped, where she tricks them out of like getting out of the cell within like a minute of waking up. That's the sort of capabilities we're talking about.
And this is the strength of Kelly Thompson too, and this is something that I remember reading in Hawkeye and West Coast Avengers, is these created villains are just very hapless, but they have so much character to them. Like I hate the yoga guy, but I want to see more of him because he sucks so bad. You know, like him being like, oh, she ripped my favorite shirt, I'll show her. Yet he's not the one that's actually in control. It seems to be the two security people. Like he almost seems just like a figurehead and like the money guy. Because of how they're talking to him. They're like, no, don't open that, don't do this, don't do that. And I love that kind of villain, and I think Kelly Thompson writes that kind very well. So yeah, very welcome addition in this book.
Yeah, I think, you know, the banter between the characters is just working. I love that, even just that talk between Canary and Barda, where Canary's like, hey, like, you know, you call her a little bat, like, you know, and stuff. Like, it feels like, oh, like it's not just like a cute thing Kelly Thompson put in early on because she thought, oh, this will be a good dynamic between them. It's something that's now being used to pay off a relationship. This idea that Barda's worried about Cass because Cass is maybe in trouble actually has some weight to it, because they've spent time in the first couple of arcs building up that there was an interesting friendship had formed there. That now when one of them cares or is worried about the other one, it's like, no, this is something that we can reflect on, and we can see where it's been forming, and it's not just something that's come out of the blue. Oh.
And she tells her she's not your pet. You know, that was the other part in there where you're like, I know you're caring about her, but that's why you can't go in there, because if you go in there, you're gonna go crazy, and that's no use to any of us, right?
Yeah.
This is a scalpel mission, not a hammer mission. So, but yeah, all good stuff all the way around.
Yeah. Also, when it cuts to Cass waking up in the cell, it's like this strong yellow light, and then everything else is pretty much black. And I thought that was really interesting because that's her Batgirl colors. So when it goes to Cass halfway through the book, it kind of is her color scheme that's all over that page. I thought that was an interesting / smart choice. So digging it quite a bit. I think the relationship between the characters is saying better as it goes, and then the plot here is very good. The fact that it's even tying into some of this, you know, what's going on in Wonder Woman, but having the Amazons involved is kind of cool, actually. So yeah. And like I said, I like the villains who are not on the same page as each other and kind of button heads a little bit and criticizing each other and whatnot. That also makes for a fun dynamic. So all right, what do you give him, Birds of Prey?
I'm rating this a 9. I'm doling them out today.
Oofed. I don't know if I'd go all the way to a 9 with this, but I'll go 8.5. 8.5. All right. JSA issue 1. Jeff Lemire writing with Diego Olortegui on the art. All right. Yeah, we got our number 1 this week. If you the third number 1 that we've talked about today. JSA issue 1 is, it's still very much set in continuity. It kind of even loosely references the fact that, they've been forgotten about and they've came back. It doesn't get super specific. It doesn't try and explain specific time periods or anything. But it just does a nice recap at the start. Like the first few pages are like, hey, this is what the GSA are. They were before anyone else. They've had a legacy team, and we're at the point now where we've got legacy characters working side by side with the original team, or whoever's left of the original team anyway. And that's where we are. And it also says, hey, this is after Absolute Power. The Justice League Watchtower's up and running. Obviously, they've got a working relationship with the GSA, or sorry, the Justice League. So it says all this stuff up, but it's got a little tease at the end where it's like, hey, but the GSA were at the start of all this, but they might also be the end of all of it. And there's like blood on the nameplate of the
giant table.
On the table, yeah. So this is all like a pre-credit thing, because then it's the title page. It's like Ragnarok Part 1, and then we get into the story proper, which I had a good fun time with. It starts off with a couple of Cobra members being chased by Obsidian and a couple of other young ones, Wildcat and Jesse specifically. And Jade actually has to show up and tell her brother to maybe stop torturing the Cobra guys. And to be fair, the Cobra guys, so there's 2 Cobra guys, right? And one of them cracks immediately and starts giving them information. And the second Cobra guy pulls out his gun and shoots him in the head and says, traitor, and then tries to kill himself. And so Obsidian's like, okay, I'm going to torture you then to get what information I need. And Jade shows up and says, no, let's not do that. We're heroes. We don't torture people. So...
Yeah, and so, like, I know Obsidian can control shadows. I've never seen him make a Slender Man spider character. That was terrifying. Like, the fact that the Cobra guys lasted as long as he did, I was like, holy crap, Obsidian's not playing around.
I really like the build to that, actually. 'Cause obviously, it's just that one page, but, like, having, like, the one guy be more scared and say, did you see that? The shadows were following us. Because as soon as he said that, I'm like, oh, I know who that is. I know who you're talking about. I got excited because it was a nice little bit. I think if you've never read a GSA book before, I think this scene does a good job of establishing Obsidian, his temper, but also more importantly, establishing the relationship between him and Jade, his brother and sister.
Yes.
And then the following meeting scene kind of like adds on that as well. But I think that's a really interesting thing to focus on to sort of get us going. So you've got like a central dynamic that we can sort of revolve the other characters around. But yeah, we see the other characters. San's there at the meeting along with the younger Dr. Midnight, and our man.
I like that they're calling this Infinity Inc. because that was the first Junior Justice Society. Right, because these are the legacy characters that came out in late 80s, early 90s. So the fact that Lemire's leaning on that as well, because that was a book about Jade and Obsidian and Rick Tyler taking over for Rex and Jesse Quick and all this. So to see all these characters here, and they're like the middle generation, right? Because these aren't the Star Girls, and I'm trying to think who else came up in the Lost Children. Right? They're not that one.
Is this Midnight and Wildcat from the middle generation?
I think so. They're the part of the younger, but I think they're lopping them into the middle generation because they're the next.
Yeah, well, because I specifically associate them with Stargirl more than I do like these other mid-generation characters. Right.
So they're additions to this Infinity Inc. kind of lineup, but I feel like that takes them because there's not like a whole lot of, there's Yolanda Wildcat and there's the Ted Wildcat, right? Ted, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Ted Grant, yeah.
Ted Grant, okay. I was just making sure.
So other plot things that are established in this scene, though, is that the older generation, well, except from Khalid, who's not the older generation, but Dr. Fate's with them, so whatever. The older generation of Jay, Alan, Wildcat, and the Hawks are missing right now, and they don't know where they are, and that's something they're concerned about. And they do mention the young generation, which again isn't really the young generation because it includes Power Girl, Mr. Terrific, and Atom Smasher, who are definitely not and even Black Canary. I mean, to be honest, it's just Stargirl and who's the redhead actually?
Let's see.
Because they bring them up on the screen.
Oh, that's what's her name? The red tornado girl. She's a hunkle. What's her name? You keep talking. I'll look this up.
I was expecting you to say something that would immediately click in my head, but it's not.
She's a Jeff Johns creation, and she hasn't been around in a while.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. She came up in around the Lightning Saga when they were redoing the JSA GLA. Why can't I remember her name? But she's a descendant of Ma Hunkel, who was the first Red Tornado. Because her name's Maxine Hunkel. What? It wasn't Twister. Let me look. Anyways.
All right. Anyway, so they're arguing about what to do. Obsidian, of course, wants to go storming around and dealing with stuff and finding where the characters are missing. Wildcat kind of agrees. But the meeting kind of disbands and everyone sort of goes off and everything's kind of gloom. It also sets up another character dynamic here, is that apparently Sand and Jade have got something.
A little thing going on?
Yeah, because he mentions, like, hey, can we talk about that thing that happened right before the other characters disappeared? That thing between us. And she's like, oh, now's not the time. So it kind of like indicates that they've got maybe a romance brewing that's kind of just started. Meanwhile, Jesse Quick is pissed off at Rick for not kind of siding with her and wanting to be proactive. So that's a relationship that's breaking down. So that's fun. The other thing,
I want to know what's going on there more, because they kind of hint to things that happen in Absolute Power, and it must have been in something that I wasn't reading, because I don't remember the stuff that happening between Our Man and Jesse Quick about him just like abandoning her when she had no powers.
Yeah, I don't think I read whatever that was either. But we also find that when the older characters disappeared, Jakeem was there with them, and he wasn't taken, but he was left injured. Although it's kind of mysterious, because Dr. Midnight, young Dr. Midnight that is, she is looking over him, and she's like, he's basically on his deathbed, but there's no like reason for it. There's no physical reason. There's no illness or anything, but he is like just barely hanging on, and it doesn't really make sense. So she's very stressed about that. So I kind of like how this book dropped us into like, oh, something's happened to half the team, and we're kind of like trying to catch up with them after the fact, and we don't really know what's going on. Obviously we the readers get to get some of it, because we actually cut to where the other characters are next, but it was intriguing to start this way, though.
Yeah. Well, I like how he's grouped these guys together as the Mystery Men, and these are like the first Justice Society members, you know, and then Khalid, of course. Yeah.
So it turns out they're at the Tower of Fate, and there's like a horde of monsters like coming to attack them outside the tower, but so they're looking for an exit. They've got Jay like running through the tower looking for the right door to like to get them out of there. The Hawks are trying to hold off the hordes outside. Khalid's like magically trying to keep them back with a barrier, although he's struggling. And like, I like some of the dialogue here actually, because he's like, oh, so many of these things are in the dark. They're asking for me to let them in, and he's really struggling.
And his eyes are wide, right? And you can see his eyes through the Helm of Fate, which you usually can't. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, just lots of just interesting stuff here. You know, he says that he's starting to feel like he's getting lost, like inside all the magic and all that. And there's this sort of 2-page layout where it's all these magic lines and strands that he's kind of getting mixed up in.
Yeah. And then some shadow entity says, "Let me take your burden."
Yeah.
And so attacks him, and you're like, "Oh my god, what the hell?"
Which is that somehow Obsidian? It may be, given what we learn at the end of the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we've not mentioned it yet, but the twist at the end is that Obsidian is not Obsidian. Where is Obsidian? Who knows? In fact, what if this is the real Obsidian that's trying to help him?
Trying to help them get out.
Yeah,
right?
Because this seems sinister at face value, but what if this is him literally saying, "No, I'll take your burden, I'll help"? Yeah. What if this is the real Obsidian trying to help him?
Yes, because he says it's all, but then he also says, "It's all right, child. You don't have to suffer this alone. Let me help you." So yeah, I don't know if that exactly sounds like Todd, but you know, I'm open to it.
Oh, where does it say that?
Right there next to when he says,
"Oh, it's before." Sorry.
Yeah.
He said after. I was like, because the "Let me take your burden" is the last line. I was like, what do you mean?
Gotcha.
But yeah, you're right. It says that first.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, all the monsters are getting through. Khalid seems to have had some kind of episode after this incident,
Mm-hmm.
but the big reveal at the end is that who we thought was Obsidian throughout the issue walks through a portal, and then like his outfit like dematerializes, and it's actually Johnny Sorrow. And the
This
final,
guy.
I know, the final page is him with the Injustice Society, the third team in the book, with the various characters around their table, and it's like, oh, like, does anyone suspect you? And he's like, nope. I was like, well, we're just getting started. So,
Yeah.
So we got Copperhead, we got oh god, Grey Ghost, we got
Dr. Element.
who's the evil version of Sand that I'm seeing here?
That's what I want to know. So I'm wondering if that was from the Venditti, I forget his name, but there was an evil version of Sandman that was running around. Yeah, so I'm wondering if that's from the Lemire book. But yeah, we got Dr. Light, it looks like Scandal Savage, Gentleman Ghost, Dr. Element, Copperhead, whoever this witchy guy is, I don't know who he is, Solomon Grundy, Red Lantern, and then the evil Sandman. So definitely a mixed bag of characters I recognize and I don't. But anytime I can see Johnny Sorrow, I get excited.
Yeah, Johnny Sorrow's got such a fun look to him because he's just this floating mask with the suit. Super interesting. And like I said, it doesn't immediately make me go, oh, where's the real Obsidian then? Like, what happened to him? And are these characters behind the disappearance of the rest of the characters? Probably, but I mean, who knows?
Well, and like what they do to Jakeem, like what they do to the Thunderbolt, right? Where's he at? There's a lot of stuff at play here, and like you said, what if that is Obsidian trying to help we'll call them the mystery men, the original JSA. Well, maybe he's trying to help them get out because he's the key to getting out, and he's stuck there as well. You know, I don't know. But yeah, definitely was not expecting an Injustice Society, and let alone Obsidian. So then when you see him, you know, you look back at that shadow, that very creepy Slender Man spider thing. You're just like, oh, that's a Johnny Sorrow specialty right there. You know?
Yeah, I'm not surprised, because I feel like one of the most common things to do in a JSA book is reveal, oh, there's an evil JSA. Like, you know, it's a really normal thing to do in a comic book.
Yeah.
But I like how it's done. I like that they've got someone on the inside, and I think that Lemire's using this as a way to kind of like explore who some of the characters in the team are. Like, it's kind of like a roundabout way of doing like a sort of fresh introduction to a lot of them. But it is a little bit risky because you're also doing that thing where you're kind of relying on like how many characters there is, and it can be maybe overwhelming if you've never read a JSA book before and maybe you don't know who a lot. Because unlike other team books and superheroes, a lot of these characters don't really pop up in other things, you know, that much. They tend to be just in JSA books.
Yes, it's mainly just JSA, right?
Yeah.
You know, so, and by the way, that character I couldn't remember, her name's Cyclone.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Cyclone.
Yep. But she had Red Tornadoes type powers. They were the wind type stuff.
All right.
But yeah,
I would never have guessed that in a million years.
Okay, so I'm looking at some of these. So they got Scandal Savage. Oh, Fog is that character, an old enemy of Sandman who wears a black version of his outfit. That's not Copperhead. That's Lady Eve, a high-ranking member of Cobra.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think you can understand why I made that mistake.
Yes, that's not Dr. Light. That's Shadow Thief, who's, you know, one of Hawkman's. So
it's a mostly new version of this team then.
Yeah, and then the Ancient Sorcerer is Wotan. So yeah, a lot of fun. Very, very excited to see where Jeff Lemire takes this, right? Because we know he can write legacy type stuff. We've seen. I mean, I haven't read a lot of Black Hammer, but that's kind of the vibe of Black Hammer, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he approaches anything to the quality of what Black Hammer I've read with this run, then we're in for a special treat. I don't think it's hitting that immediately. I think it's a solid first issue. I like that it's playing on the relationships between the characters. I think one of the things that can happen when you've got too many characters and you're doing this big type of book where you've got a big team of villains and you've got all these things going. I like that this first issue took time to establish 2 or 3 like interpersonal relationships. I think that's so important. Whether it's the brother-sister relationship, even though it's not really the brother and sister as we find out, but even just like playing with that, Jade struggling as the leader of the team, the possible romance between her and Sand, and then also Rick and Jesse Quick. Like, there's just enough in that meeting to get a sense of who each of the characters are that I really hope that they don't skimp in that. I think one of the things that I'm loving about Birds of Prey right now is that it feels like those personal bonds between the teammates are getting a reasonable amount of focus issue to issue, and I hope that this book doesn't skimp in that. And I trust Lemire, but it's been a while since he's been doing an ongoing superhero book, so I'd be curious to see how he does with this as it goes forward.
Yeah, so far I think he's balanced it pretty well, right? Because we get to spend enough time with each of those sets of teams, right, to get the dynamics down. So
and we know he's got the Absolute Flash coming at some point next year, so it seems like for whatever reason he's back on the DC superhero train. That's
good.
I'm down for more of it, for sure. So unsurprisingly, we're down for another issue of this. It's fine to good. Like, I wouldn't say it's exceptional. Olortegui's kind of one of those artists that is very much like, he's pretty much standard house style, and I think it's solid. I don't dislike anything, but nothing is spectacular either. Nothing like catches me. Nothing takes my breath away.
No, it feels very Howard Porter-esque too. Like, very big, thick lines. The characters are kind of bulky, like in a good way. There's a lot of good movement in them, right? It's like not a lot of, it feels like posed images and whatnot, but like, you're right, like, it's perfectly fine, but it's not going to knock your socks off. Yeah,
it does the job, and that's about it.
But by the way, do you know what Sand's real name is?
Wesley Dodds?
No, Sand, not Sandman.
I can't remember. It's been too long.
Because he was Sandy the Golden Boy, right, back in the day.
Yeah, I remember that.
His name is Sanderson Hawkins.
That sounds familiar. Yeah, I think you said it.
Which I feel like that is a very golden age saying. We'll call the Sandman character sidekick. His real name will have a version of sand in it. So it doesn't have to go too far. Which, did not know that till today. That's hilarious.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing I feel, because I may bring this up during action actually, that there's a city in Krypton called Kryptonopolis, and I'm like, really? Come on.
Yeah. Which I understand that, because the old Greek for opolis meaning city, right? But you have metropolis. Like, it's just, don't do it.
And it's like, we don't have a city on our planet called Earth City or Earthopolis.
Terranopolis.
Yeah, or that. Yeah, there's no variation of it, so it just sounds a bit weird, that's all.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying. Anyway, what are you giving JSA?
I'm gonna give this a solid 8.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an 8 out of 10. I think it hits that mark. I don't think it goes above that yet, but I do think there's potential here for more once Lemire really gets to start cooking with some of the characters. So, but interesting sort of like plot to drop us into, kind of after it's already started. I think that's an interesting choice that he's made here, to make it feel kind of like it's already hit the ground running in a way. So, cool. Shazam, issue 17, Josie Campbell writing with Dan McDaid on the art. So, this is continuing the Freddy Commander stuff, where he's now taking endorsements, or he's doing endorsements, I should say, for a company, for the evil company, who are, basically saying we want to get rid of the homeless, but we can't because those goody two-shoe Marvel family keep like helping them and feeding them. But that's why we have the commander, and he's got some endorsement deals. And this causes a fight between Billy and Freddy, where Billy's like, heroes don't take the money, we save people to save them. And Freddy, while he's being a dick, does kind of like, he kind of implies that he's doing this and getting the money to help out with their parents' money issues, because the parents are fighting legal battles with Billy's mum, who's trying to sue them. And it's like, hey, I'm doing something to actually help our parents adopt us. What are you doing? And like, Billy's left there standing in the cold at the front door as Freddy flies off and Shazam's up. That was a good opening scene. I thought it got to because the thing that we get to here is we go through the issue. Billy goes to the Rock of Eternity, talks to the captain because they kind of do this like dual identity thing now, and he's like, "Hey, like this thing that Freddy's got, this green lightning that's giving him power. Like, what is it? Like, did you find anything about it?" He's like, "Oh, I didn't find anything in the records. It predates all the records." But they go to Hephaestus to find out because he built it. He forged this green lightning thing. And he basically talks about how, it landed on Earth or wherever, and it was this powerful thing, and there was this entity inside of it, and he was forging it, and he realized that as he was forging it, that he was like thinking different things, that it was influencing him. And he basically describes it as like not inherently evil, but it's a test that'll prey upon all the worst voices that you could have in your head, and that lines up with all that sort of like doubting narration that we've been seeing with Freddy, where it's like, oh, they don't really love you, they think you're weak, so on and so on.
It's almost giving you permission to be your worst self, right? Which isn't necessarily evil, but it's very much about being selfish and kind of self-interested and all that type of thing.
I think it's interesting though you phrase it that way though, that it's a test, because that makes me think that ultimately Freddy might be able to resist it and
overcome it.
Yeah. And maybe he gets to keep the power at that point. Maybe like whatever this thing is, it'll let him keep it, and he won't have to give it up because he's earned it, kind of thing. But I thought that was an interesting spin on it. And meanwhile, Mary is like looking into this company as well, because obviously, what's her face, the Savannah daughter,
Georgia, that's right.
That's the one. She's like, yeah, and they had those mobile phone things in their chests, right? So they go investigating, and they basically find this huge, I assume underground, like metallic room with a big bridge, and there's all this like machinery around the outside of it. But it seems to turn out that a lot of the villains that have been in the past couple of arcs are all here. Like we've got the graffiti girl from the subways. But there's also the troll king dude from that last arc as well. Plus, a couple of the villains have the phones in their chests. So it seems like this company's collecting, like.
Well, yeah. You also have the space gorillas, right? From the other one. They have a phone in their chest, and they have those giant bats and stuff. So it seems like Savannah's behind this, but they're working with someone else, and we know she's working with Mr. Mind. Right, but
yeah, we know that. But it makes me wonder though. Like, I don't think the implication here is that they always were being controlled by the company / Savannah. I think the implication here is that after they've been in the story, they've been taken by this company, and that they've been turned into soldiers for Savannah's cause. Yeah,
and see that social media company that Freddy's working for is called Society, right?
That's right.
And I'm wondering if that's
Secret Society of Monsters, yes.
Right. The Monster Society, yeah. So I feel like that's what this is building to, is this is going to be like a, technologically enhanced Monster Society led by Mr. Mind. But it's also, I'm wondering if this Amber thing that Hephaestus had formed, and it's like a test, I'm wondering if it has something to do with Mr. Mind, right? Because that's how kind of Mr. Mind works. He's a telepathic Venusian.
Yeah, also the little creature thing we kind of see inside of it makes me think of Mr. Mind as well.
Me too.
So yeah.
So I wonder if it's one of his type of things, but he's not inherently evil like Mr. Mind is, and that's why it's preying on your kind of worst self as the test to see if you could earn this power. Definitely interesting things at play here. I like how Campbell's kind of tying all the other arcs together here, where it feels like it's been slowly setting up this society.
Yeah, it feels like it's bringing a lot of things together. I do think the again, that narration that's actually sort of like the voice speaking to Freddy in his head, still very effective. It's been effective every time it's come up, which is cool. And it seems like the issue ends with Mary fighting all these monsters that are being controlled by the company, whilst Freddy seemingly is maybe going to go ruin a homeless camp, which, proper evil stuff. Dudley's in the foreground looking like, oh no, what's happening here? So, I mean, honestly, the arc's been really solid. I think I'm enjoying this more than the Subway arc, and that was already a strong arc that I thought Josie Campbell started with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is really clicking this arc specifically. So
I'm
having a good time. I like that it's not, it's kind of. I mean, we don't really see the rest of the family in this issue, but Billy, Freddie, and Mary all have a little something to do, and it feels like they're all doing different things, and they're all kind of linking up in different sides of the same story, which is cool as well. So
yeah, I also love that when Billy's talking to the captain, and he's like, I don't know everything that is in here on the Rock of Eternity, so I got some help from that dinosaur accountant, which I thought was pretty funny, right? And he goes, and he helped you. And the captain tells Billy, unlike you, I did all my paperwork. And Billy just under his breath is like, oh, good. So my adult self is just Eugene. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, the only kind of downside for the issue really is that, Dan McDaid's art is, kind of a little bit middling, I would say.
Not a fan. I don't like his Hephaestus looks great, but any of the kind of normal human characters feel a little bit off. So
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Freddy kind of looks like Fabio in some of these scenes.
Yeah, sometimes like he almost like there's a page where he's like hearing all of the negativity, because it's basically like the voices.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's actually as Hephaestus is describing what the voice does to you, and you see like Freddy hearing like all the negative voices of everyone around the city, and it's all this hate, it's all this xenophobia and whatever else, and he's sort of holding his head in pain in this big full page spread. Like, I swear, like the way he's overdone the top of the boots is like they're so long, the way they flop down in front of the rest of the boots. I know he always kind of has that, but it just it looked like so 70s to me in a way that just like I get it, the whole like Freddy inspired Elvis blah blah blah, right, but this looked like, okay, no, this looks like I'm looking at the Honky Tonk Man right now with these trousers. I was like, maybe overdoing it a bit.
Yeah, I won't disagree. But again, if we get McDaid doing a Greek Gods book, I think it would look great. I think it fits a little bit more there, because like his Hephaestus here has some kind of the New 52 Greek Gods vibe to it, and we kind of get a little bit of his history in there as well, which I do like. But yeah, for the most part, the art wasn't doing it for me. So
I do miss the artist we had on the last arc.
Yes,
I will say that, but still digging the story though, and digging everything they're doing with the characters and the way it's all kind of coming together. Like, I'm actually really invested in what's happening next. So there's not much better you can say than that for the writing. So what are you giving Shazam, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a solid 7.5.
Yeah, I want to go higher because I'm really enjoying the story, but I think the art just has to drag it under the 8. It really does. So I'll agree with the 7.5. So cool. Poison Ivy issue 27, WIllow Wilson writing with Marcio Takara on the art. I get to take a break here because I didn't read this one. Matt, on you go.
Take a break, look at some covers. I'm going to talk about Pam and Janet from HR and their whole entire, not the entire time, but man, there's some sloppy soap opera relationship dynamics going on in this book, and I'm surprised how much I enjoy that. But yeah, this issue starts with Pam walking through Gotham, and there's wanted posters all over because she's been named as the leader of the Green Knights, or the Order of the Green Knight, and people are staring at her as she's walking through. And so Janet calls and is like, "You got to come back. I'm at home. We got to think this through." And as Pam's on the phone, a batarang lands near her head. So she drops her phone, ducks into an alley, and Batman's there. And they do a really cool thing here where you never get a good view of Batman, because this is in the day. He's always in the shadow. And him and Pam have a standoff where she goes full Ivy and she says, "Stay back." And in her monologue in the narration boxes, she talks about how, every time we fight, it's a stalemate, right? We're never, we know each other so well. And she just explains to him that, I'm not going anywhere. I didn't do anything. You have to trust me, right? I've earned that. And Batman disagrees and goes, "This is one of your things. You would, of course, would inspire this cult. They blew up a grocery store in the name of ecology. This is an Ivy thing." And she swears it wasn't him. And he's like, "Have I ever denied any of the crimes, or have I always owned up to you?" And Batman hesitates. And so they end up reaching an understanding where she tells him, like, "Look, I'm going to find out why they're doing this. It doesn't make sense to me, but, I'm going to need you to get off my back so I can do what I need to do. And if there's anything, that I need help with, I'll know how to find you, and I'll clean it up." But we never have this meeting. And before Batman leaves, he goes, "What meeting?" And he Batman's out of the scene. So Ivy starts, to go back, meet up with Janet. They're trying to figure out where they're going to go because they can't stay in her apartment because people know that's where she lives. So they settle on the town that has just popped up out of the swamp. And Janet's like, "A creepy ghost town in the middle of the swamp? What are we doing? This is, I can't live here." And Pam's like, I've been through here. You don't know if, you don't know if there's ghosts or anything. People would kill to be in here. To where we get this nice interaction where Janet just hesitates and is like, "Well, are we sure they didn't, kill to live here?" So Pam leaves Janet there to go investigate this bombing in the grocery store. While Janet's there, she gets spooked by something that's kind of going through the town. Now, I don't know if it's just her being afraid of her own shadow, or, just being, again, she's spooking herself out. So she calls the one friend that she can count on, and that's Killer Croc. And so Croc comes up out of the sewers, answers the phone, and is like, "Look, he can't believe that Pam left her there by herself." He's like, "I know where that is. I will meet you there." So an hour later, they come through, and Croc asks Janet, like, "Hey, so what's up with this town? What have you seen?" And Janet's like, "Well, no, I really haven't left." And Croc's like, "Well, look, this is what I do in Gotham, is you can find some really cool stuff in the sewers. Maybe we can get some, like, hints about what had happened here." And so Janet follows Croc into the sewers, and they find this graffiti written all over that just says, "We tried," which, again, Janet's a bit jumpy. She's like, "Look, this is sinister. What is it?" And Croc's like, "Yeah, you see graffiti all the time. It can't be anything." And, and in that moment where she feels care, she gives Croc a kiss. And then their scene ends with, and this is how the book ends, but so I'll jump back to Ivy, but that they're making out in the sewer. And so the Janet and Croc, and Janet and Ivy, and Janet and Harley and Ivy, there's this whole messy soap opera thing going on, and it's very entertaining. But so while Croc and Janet are doing their thing, Ivy goes to investigate this bombing, and she kind of waltzes in. She's wearing this yellow sundress, big sun hat. She's not inconspicuous at all. And a cop goes to stop her, and she uses some of her pheromones and what else does she say? Her pheromones and biotoxins to just knock the cop out. And she's like, the only thing that is going to happen to him is he'll wake up with a really bad headache. And that she mentioned she's starting to feel like her old self again, which is good. She said after the rebirth and all the stuff with Woodrew, she needed this. And as she's, looking over, like, the chalk outlines and just the carnage of the explosion, there's this, like, graffiti painting of what looks like a living giant green tree with candles around it. So it looks almost like not an altar, but like a worship space. And she turns around and she sees the person that had spray painted it there. And he's dressed like the other guys that we saw that were involved in the Order of the Green Knight. And Ivy's up and stops him. And he's like astonished and starts going on. He's like, "Oh, the prophet was right. You're really here. are you proud of what we've done? And she's like, yo, what is going on? He's like, well, you appeared to the first disciple in a dream and you defeated the Green Man, and basically describes her struggle with Woodrue. And so Pam's very concerned because she's like, what? How could any of these people know about that, right? That was out in Slaughter Swamp. Only her and her immediate group were aware of that. But, so he, she lifts him up and is like, look, I'm not your Green Knight. I don't know who you think I am. And she tells him, like, I don't want to lead your cult. Like, here's the thing. Bombing hurts the earth too. That's why we kind of call it scorched earth. Because no matter who wins, the earth always loses, right? And so he's convinced, but he goes, but what about them? And Ivy turns around, and it's just this beautiful page of her in her full Ivy gear with these people wearing green hoodies and green masks standing behind her, almost like waiting for her to give orders. So Ivy has entered kind of this messiah not a messiah complex for her, but someone has dubbed her the Green Knight. And there's a cult that has gone up around her to which that she's not comfortable with, right? She doesn't want to be anybody's deity. She just wants to be Pam or Ivy or whoever she is. Really solid issue. Really enjoying what Wilson's doing with the story. And just Takara's art, again, I do it every time Takara does the art. His Pam is gorgeous to look at. Just the way that he draws her in the full Ivy. She almost always has like this rose corsage up on the upper part of her, the chest piece of her costume. And it just, it really makes the just typical green bodysuit pop out. And then it also has like a lot of texture to it. And it's just a really fun design. All the stuff in the swamp, drawn kind of creepy to deal with the ghost elements. But yeah, man, I can't get over how great this book is always to look at. And yeah, so I'm going to give Poison Ivy an 8.5.
All right. Plastic Man No More, issue 3, Christopher Cantwell writing with Jacob. That's not right. That's not the artist on this, is it?
I can look for you.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is Jacob Edgar. I don't see why I got it wrong. Anyway, yeah. For some reason, I thought this was the last issue, and it clearly isn't. Yeah,
it is not. There's at least one more.
There's at least one more because it's not the end of the story, so that's fine. So, yeah, obviously we had the whole comedy of errors last issue with the Metal Men dying, and this issue there's a nice little payoff to it actually, where Plastic Man's trying to tell them, yeah, I got uranium back from the bad guy, but he just kind of mutters under his breath, but all the Metal Men were killed in the mission. And like Detective Chimp's like, what was that last part?
Yeah.
What was that?
You're trailing off there at the end.
Yeah. You killed off like the entire team that was sent in to help you? Okay, that's not a good result, but hey. So yeah, obviously we're barreling towards this plan to use uranium to blow up a nuclear bomb to hopefully fix what's wrong with Plastic Man, so that in effect they can also fix it in his son if he ever has that same issue. So yeah, we get like his allies are getting a little conflicted. Obviously his old buddy's fine, but the doctor lady's having some struggles. Detective Chimp investigates like the crime scene of the Metal Men and tries to ascertain what happened there, and ultimately kind of confronts Plastic Man and the others towards the end of the issue about it, which leads to No Face, who, by the way, is working with Plastic Man now. Because Plastic Man tricks his son and says, "Hey, I need your help. It's not about like anything else. I actually want your help with a superhero thing. Let's go and take down a bad guy." But it's all a trap. He basically lures his son into a trap in this rundown like pier building where like his allies jump out and syringe him to like take him out and basically sort of subdue him. And he's pissed about it, but it's like, no, like we need to do this to save your life. We're going to do it. We're going to have this nuclear bomb go off. He argues against it. He fights against his dad. There's a great couple of pages where it's like a 16 panel grid,
Mhm.
where it's like Plastic Man's head, but then in the second page, like some of them start to black out, and it's only some of the panels, and it really gives you this sense of like, just things closing in, and it feeling
Mhm.
really like an intense conversation. Really well done, actually, in the layouts there. But yeah, the big payoff to this issue though is that when Detective Chimp shows up and says, "Oh, that whatever happened to the Metal Men wasn't an accident. You did something. Like there's, all of the stuff that you said collapsed and led to their death was brand new. It wasn't worn down.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, there's just fire, and then you realize that No Face, who's working with Plastic Man, the deal they have apparently is that Plastic Man will give his face to No Face, so that No Face has a face, which is kind of funny, I admit. Once everything's all done, but he has killed Detective Chimp. Detective Chimp has been burned alive by No Face.
Mhm. Well, no, wasn't they just burned alive? So earlier in the book, the doctor is like, well, yeah, we have to open up the windows when you're around because as your body is breaking down,
Oh yeah,
you're emitting this gas that's toxic.
That makes the fire more intense, yeah. But he's still on fire.
I took that as he lit Plastic Man on fire, and it was the gases that killed Detective Chimp. He says, we ignited your outer dermal polymer layer. It increased the sublimation of the gases.
Oh, okay, sure.
That factor says, so you killed him, you poisoned him, So that's what I took it as.
Oh, okay, sure, but like I don't think that changes the fact that the fire still sets Detective Chimp on fire. Like, I don't think that changes that.
Well, yeah, no, but he could have survived that if it wasn't for the gas coming from Eel, which is why they set him on fire.
I mean, I guess, but he still it still shows you a close up of the flamethrower that No Face has got, and then the fire kind of comes from behind Plastic Man.
Yeah,
like I still sort of took this as a very unhinged moment of like the villain just spraying fire at someone.
100% it's unhinged. I'm just saying that Detective Chimp died because of the gases, right? It wasn't just the flamethrower. He just didn't cook the chimp because he was going to talk.
Well, was it not intentional? I thought it was intentional.
No. It was intentional, but that's what I'm saying is it's a poisoning versus a flamethrower death, right? So they're trying not to bring, because if Detective Chimp ends up being found roasted to death, right, versus him just being poisoned, I'm sure that would lead trails back. But they, Cantwell goes out of his way to bring up that, that they poisoned Detective Chimp. It wasn't just a flamethrower. Because to me, I took that as more as Plastic Man was on fire and him flailing around. That's it could have gotten on to Detective Chimp, but what ultimately killed him was the gases, and that's why they set up the gases early on.
I'm not so sure the trace back to the culprit is any more difficult or not because it's a poison rather than being torched alive.
I don't know. That's how I took it because they're trying not to be as sloppy because that's how Detective Chimp found them, right? It was all of that. It was the, nothing that Plastic Man had said was true, right? So, but yeah, it feels almost like a cover up kind of deal, and that's why the poisoning versus the flamethrower. Because I was very confused at first until you get to that page where he's melting, and they talk him through it, and it gets super sinister after that too, because it almost feels like he is past the point of no return now.
Yeah, he's completely breaking down here at this point in the book. But yeah, Chimp's dead though, so that's kind of your big shock thing for the issue.
Yep.
As the other characters get ready, and yeah, the issue basically just ends with them driving off in a truck to like their location, to their nuclear bomb site.
Yeah, to the boardwalk that's been abandoned, and I did like that. Plastic Man's like, yeah, I used to go there as a kid. It's run down. We're saving them the use of bulldozers. It's like, no, but you're still setting off a nuclear blast, you dummy. Like that's not the same as bulldozers.
Yeah, he does try and justify it by saying that they know it's evacuated, like, or not evacuated, but it's empty, right? It's derelict. No one's there, and no one has been for a long time. And in some ways, that he's kind of happy to see it be gone because it's just nothing but a horrible childhood like memory place for him. Yeah, it's a solid issue. I think out of the 3 issues, this is by far the one that's the least exciting. just because it's mostly just getting the pieces in place. The most dramatic, interesting thing that happens probably isn't the chimp death. It's interesting Chimp getting closer to the truth, but I would say the most dramatic thing that happens that's interesting is Plastic Man tricking his son and like sort of that sense of betrayal that comes with that. But for the most part, though, this didn't have all of the really good, like, sort of learning about what was happening to him in issue 1. It didn't have the great sort of heist with the Metal Men stuff from issue 2 that led in that sort of tragic ending. This felt definitely more like a setting up for the end of the story, but it wasn't as, like, inherently as interesting from, you know, cover to cover the way that the other issues had been.
Yeah, I know, but I do like the big blow up that Plastic Man has on the Justice League, where he's trying to tell them what had happened and they're talking over him. And he's like, you know what? I quit. I didn't even have a good parking space. You guys don't listen to me. You know, I'm over it. So I thought that was a pretty big, you know, piece of it as well. But yeah, just compared to the last two, this one felt like you know, not at the same level.
Yeah, it's just sometimes you have to have the part of the story that sets the next bit up. And that's mostly what this was for me. It just didn't have quite the big heavy swings that the other two, or the focus that the other two did. Which is not to say it didn't have good scenes or good moments that did ring true, because it absolutely did. Just not quite the same level as the other two. So, are still exceptional though. Like I mentioned, that 16-panel grid that changes over the 2 pages, but even the page where right before the torching of Chimp, there's a page, just a black background where it's Chimp and Plastic Man looking at each other in profile, and it's like, you know, where the accusations kind of like coming out from Chimp, or even accusation, but just kind of like prodding as if he's like questioning the story, and then obviously it ends with a disaster. But like just the intensity of that page and the harsh brim of light going against the edges of their face, and the serious looking Chimp's face. You can't really even see Plastic Man's face because of the goggles that he's always wearing, but just all of the art is really fantastic. And you know, even if it wasn't hitting the story highs that the last 2 issues were, the art was constantly feeling top tier. So added a lot to the atmosphere of everything.
Yeah, I agree.
So all right, what are you giving Plastic Man No More issue 3?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
Yeah, I'll just go with a straight 7 for this one, I think. Looking forward to the finale and seeing how it all wraps up. And the fact that Plastic Man's kind of responsible for Chimp's death feels like it should have consequences, so I'm not sure what that'll be now.
I agree. And also just ultimate dirtbag move what he did to his kid. You know, tricking him into thinking that he cared. And then he does care, right? But it's just the way in which he did it. You're just like, maybe there is no coming back for Plastic Man. Maybe it's just his punishment. I
mean, the kid even has a moment where he's kind of like enjoying it, and he almost has to fight, like enjoying it too much. And then obviously his dad betrays him, and it's like, oh, okay, I can hate you again. It's fine.
So, you know.
So, yeah, there you go. That's Plastic Man No More issue 3. All right, well, one last book then for me to talk about, and that is my Patreon book. We've got American Vampire 1976 issue 2. So if you recall, the first issue ended with the reveal that Jim Book was still alive and was going to be going on this train heist with Skinner, Sweet, and Pearl. So this issue kind of starts with a kind of a recap of who Jim Book was, just in case you'd forgotten about it, because it's been so goddamn long. And I think that was a wise choice. I think Snyder knows that it was right to sort of recap this a little bit and just set up, okay, so they were basically adopted brothers together, but one man became a lawman, the other man became an outlaw, Skinner became a vampire, and then intentionally made Book a vampire, but Book didn't want to be a vampire, so he had himself shot with a gold bullet. So that he wouldn't become a monster. We find out though that his wife would go on to work with the Vassals and then stole some magic Lazarus juice to bring him back, and he eventually came back to life as a vampire, as an undead monster, and it took a long time. But in the last couple of years, he's been working with the Vassals, particularly Pearl, to be a lawman again. So he's back to being that. But Yeah, we get this nice little recap over the first like 4 pages, just sort of explaining all this and bringing everyone up to speed. Once it gets to the heist though, and they're kind of waiting for this train, and it's the 3 of them together, there is kind of like a bit of chemistry there where they're kind of bickering like old times, and Skinner's explaining the plan and how he'd pull off a lot of these train heists. And basically inside like a tunnel, like they'd basically dig their own separate tunnel, and it'd be very easy to like access the train switch. So they would basically just shoot off the last car of the train and make it go down a little side tunnel. And then by the time anyone noticed that the last car of the train wasn't there, they'd be like, oh, who knows when that happened. So that's what they're doing here. So we get a whole big sequence here where they're climbing down on top of the train, from the top of the cliff, going down to where the tunnel is, and walking along the train. And there's a whole bit here where Pearl's like, hey Skinner, are you sure your aim still is good enough to like hit the switch with the gun? And there's an interesting moment where he takes out the gun, he fires the bullet. The art's really good here. It's a really nice sequencing where he takes out the gun, a lot of speed lines for the train movement, and he fires a bullet and it misses, and the art like shows his face being shocked, and then he takes a second shot and it hits the target, and he's like, I told you so, Dolly. She's not even there, he's just saying that to himself. But it's this idea that he is maybe actually starting to like miss a beat. Now that he's human, now that he's aging, maybe he's not quite as perfect at doing all the things he used to be perfect at doing. So it really tells you that stuff. And meanwhile, in New York, we have Hobbs and Travis.
I almost said Shaw. God damn.
And they're hunting this killer who's going after old Vassal members. And they're kind of like staking out like this old Vassal member who's like waiting up in his apartment. And there's punks outside in the street, and but even though they've been watching, somehow someone still gets to this old Vassals member, and like a leg comes flying out the window and hits them, like hits the car they're sitting in. So, and bring up Gus again, which is the kid that Travis was with, that now the tongue the bad guys have. So that's something that's also been set up that comes up again. Probably the creepiest scene in this whole book, though, this issue, is you've got Agent Bixby, who's with the president, and the president's saying, oh, hey, did I go too far in that last address when I said the State of the Union's not good? And he's like, no, they want truth, they want some honesty, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole thing. But as he's talking to the president, and the president's kind of following his orders based on like the tongue and like all the evil stuff going on, he hears like a little rustle outside of the White House, so he goes out to check it. And we get this sequence where the Grey Trader shows up. But the voice that comes from the Grey Trader, and this is something they've established before, is that the Grey Trader like will speak from like a loved one, like a loved one's voice will come out from within. And it's Bixby's mother like starts talking to him and talks about how, oh, it's don't be scared, it's just mama, it's just me, you've been doing a good job for the Grey Trader. And the voice starts talking about how, oh, I remember when you were a child, and we'd have the bad season, winter, and I'd have to hide you in the closet whilst men came over and to earn some money, kind of thing. And you'd be in the closet and you'd really want to bust out and help your mother, because you'd hear the men being on top and grunting. So the voice is basically saying, hey, like, wasn't this a traumatic memory for you growing up? And it's basically the Grey Trader's here to intimidate Bixby, because there's a chance that maybe he wants to come out of the closet again now, with all this evil stuff going on, that he might want to try and stop whatever's happening. It's like, no, you were a good boy then, you stayed in the closet, and I was able to earn money, and that's how we were able to escape, so I need you to stay in the closet again now. And the Grey Trader's voice is opening up as this voice is saying all this to him. Super creepy, super dark. It's one of the darkest scenes that's probably been in this book in quite some time. And really just traumatic and like super dark night of the soul stuff. But basically also kind of like lays out the idea that there's like thousands of people around the world have been like replaced with the tongue, right? And all the monsters underneath are getting ready. Apparently it's only going to be a week now until the beast comes up and like takes over the world. So we're we're genuinely in the end game now of like the whole idea of American Vampire. So, and it even brings up Gus. The only one who would stop us, the little boy Gus. Well, we've got him hidden all the way too. So, maybe if the good characters can get to Gus, they can stop everything. But the Grey Trader, as this is all wrapping up, and Bixby's saying, "No, Mama, I will stay in the closet. I'll help." And he's like, sort of like, got this look of fear in his eyes. The Grey Trader's tongue is licking like all around his chin. Like it's got a really big tongue, so it's got all the way under his chin and up the other side of his face.
That sounds disgusting.
Proper creepy, proper vile. It's by far the standout scene of the issue because it's super intimidating. And then like Bixby's like sort of like stumbling through the bushes outside the White House. However, the Brune, the golem style character, he was watching this and sort of witnessed some of this and flies off to Felicia. Yeah, no, interesting. And she pulls out a big floppy disk, like a really big floppy disk. It's the 70s, so imagine a floppy disk from the 70s. At least I think that's what it is. That's what it looks like to me.
It looks like a square vinyl.
Back to New York with Hobbs and Travis, and they basically find this old guy that used to be a VM strung up like he's in a Hellraiser movie where he's been skinned from the neck down, and he's missing the foot obviously that gets thrown at them, and they're like, shit, how did they do this? Like, what's going on here? And basically Hobbs like sort of was like sensing around him that there's a bunch of people in the building that were maybe responsible for it, like that the Grey Trader or the Beast took control maybe of like various people in the building, like just like neighbors, just innocent people who did this for their bidding. But then Hobbs corrects Travis for the assumption, and he's like, this doesn't make sense. Like, this doesn't seem like this is something the Beast is doing. This seems like something else that's trying to get the Beast's attention or the Tongue's attention. This is an ancient enemy who's controlling other people to make them do their bidding. And then, this is kind of a bombshell actually, he's like, wait, you don't think it's him? And then Hobbs ends the scene by saying, yeah, I think Dracula's back. So, Dracula, and yeah, the entire arc about Dracula was about how Dracula would like take control of people, like he'd have an influence on people. So yeah, Dracula, at least Hobbs seems to think that Dracula is trying to like call out the Beast to say, hey, I'm on your side now. Maybe because Dracula is aware that once the Beast comes up, like they're in charge and I can't do anything. But as powerful as Dracula is, maybe Dracula needs to like get all buddy with the Beast so that he has a place in this new world. I don't know, super interesting anyway. Like that reveal was super fun. Then towards the end of the issue, we're back on the train. They're looking for the artifact, and because it was all these museum pieces and things like that and artifacts, and one of them's got a secret map on it for the MacGuffin or whatever. So they're looking, and it ends up being on George Washington's farewell address. Like apparently the map's on that. So it's proper kind of like national treasure shit with like what this stuff is. But they get basically some guards are in the train car and they say freeze, and they're like, wait, really, we can handle 3 of you? But like, no, we've got like 30 other men outside that are all enclosing on this location. And basically Skinner was narrating earlier about how everything's kind of like, oh, like the life will always have a way of having one last F you, but maybe this time it's an F me because like my number's finally up. And at the end, here it is. Here's the F me. So yeah, basically they're just cornered by a bunch of vampires because the guards turn out to be vampires who were waiting on this. So it seems like this whole train heist ended up being kind of a trap. Now, who set the trap? I'm not saying that Pearl or Book set a trap, but more just like, yeah, like they were being waited. They knew they were coming. They were expecting this move, so they've got them cornered here at the end. It's a pretty good issue, honestly. I think it continues a lot of the momentum of the first one. I think both main plots have solid follow-ups, especially the New York stuff, because I think the dead body they find and the reveal that Dracula's involved feels like a really big deal. So I was super into that. But that middle scene with Bixby and the Grey Trader, that was like your horror scene for the issue. That was your super disturbing, great visuals, especially once like the Grey Trader starts describing what's going to happen, and there's panels of like inside the beast's mouth with all the vampires inside it, and it's just all these blacks and reds, and it's just super Lovecraftian and like otherworldly, like incomprehensible to the human mind kind of stuff. Like when it starts doing that, it feels like super atmospheric. So really, really into that, and the fact that everything's coming together, like it really does feel like the last arc in a lot of ways, because we've got like Jim Book's back, we got Pearl, we got Felicia, we got Travis from that arc, we've got obviously Skinner. Like it feels like everything, and Dracula even is back, so everything's coming together, and this issue just kind of juggled all that and was very exciting because of it. Less action in this issue, but I actually think it made for a better issue in a lot of ways, because it had a lot of juicier stuff to get through. So yeah, probably I'll go 8.5. And that's maybe just because it's juggling a bit too much, but the art's fantastic and I love all the plot developments. It's getting super exciting. So there you go. That is American Vampire 1976 issue 2. So that'll do the final part of the show, where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and of course top 5 books. So Matt, what is your panel / moment of the week?
Let's see. There's some good ones in Birds of Prey. The discussion between Dinah and Barda, I really enjoyed. Most of Batgirl, but you can't do a whole issue as a moment, right? Like,
it's kind of one big
really
continuous scene, so I get why you're saying that, but yeah.
But I mean, if I have to pick out, it was the ending piece where Shiva lies, and she, Cass knows that she's lying, and that means that she does care about her daughter. I thought that part was good. However, I'm a Mark, and I love Superman, so I'm going to do Clark's first appearance in Absolute Superman. There, he's at the shield, at the people behind him to save them. Just a real good Superman moment. So yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, there's probably one or two things I could go with Absolute Superman. There's definitely a few options, but I think for me it has to be Batgirl, and it has to be the 2-page layout where she's doing the whole monologue internally about what she's chosen. I chose Batgirl, I chose to be an orphan, I chose to restrain, this is my choice and she can't take that from me, kind of thing. Like that whole speech I think was kind of my big moment of the week, so I'm going to go with that. For cover, there's a lot of books this week, so there's actually quite a lot of options. There's a Gabriel Deodato Batman cover, as well as what do we call him, a Nicholas Scott cover. Both are pretty solid. Main cover for Absolute Superman's very good, of course. There's a variant for Action by Abraham Mustafa, which is just Clark and his the new clothes he gets in the issue, like pointing up with the city behind him, but it's just like a really cool pulpy sort of image. Main Birds of Prey cover is really good. But I honestly, I gotta go simple here and just go with the main Batgirl cover. I love the shading on Cassie's outfit, and it's just on this white background. It's just really stark. I think the logo is pretty cool as well, which is the first time I've seen it, because obviously it's a new book.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's my pick. What you got?
I'm surprised you didn't like the Skylar Patridge Batgirl variant with all the shadows, and it's got Shiva in the light lines.
It's
right?
good. It is good. Yeah. But like I say, there's a lot of books this week, so there's a lot of covers to pick from.
Yeah, I also like the main JSA cover. It's just like a classic kind of JSA image.
It's kind of good, but it's also just a lot of characters, so it's not as artistically pleasing to my eye, I guess.
Well, I was going to say, kind of good, but a lot of characters, kind of as JSA in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
That Action Comics variant that you talked about, the Raheem Mustafa one, is good. But what book came out this week, Pete? Poison Ivy.
Poison Ivy, yeah.
Yes, and there's a Jenny Frisian cover, and it's got Ivy surrounded by sunflowers, and I just, that's gonna be my pick.
Okay. All right. So best art of the week.
This one's tough, right? Because you got Birds of Prey, really, really good Sammy Basri, right? Batgirl, I'm not even trying that name because I'm not looking at it. And then Ivy. And this is the real big toss up because I do love Takara, but I think I'm going to give it to Basri for Birds just based off of mainly that Barda, right? That entire, it's a lot of talking. And usually in comics, that's not as interesting. But Basri was doing stuff with facial expressions that was subtle and just fantastic. And then when you add the action and stuff to it, like Cass escaping from the cell and all of that, it's top notch. So yeah, Birds of Prey is my art of the week.
I don't know if I'm as conflicted. I mean, Sandoval's art and Absolute Superman was great. I would also say, Plastic Man's the other one that I'd bring up, but I think it is Batgirl for me. Basri's art was good, but I do think that I prefer a few of the other ones more, mainly Batgirl. So I'm going to go with Takeshi Miyazawa for that.
Okay.
All right. So top 5 books, Matt. Go.
All right. So I'm gonna go Batgirl 1, Birds of Prey 2, Absolute Superman 3, Ivy 4, and JSA 5.
All right. My number 1 is Batgirl. My number 2 is Absolute Superman. Number 3 is Birds of Prey. Number 4 is GSA. Number 5 action, I think. Yeah. I think Shazam would have been in there had it not been for maybe not liking the art as much. Yeah. There you go. Okay. There we go. So that'll just leave me to tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. So next week we have Absolute Batman issue 2, Action Comics 1075, Green Lantern 17, Batman and Robin 15, Gotham by Gaslight: The Kryptonian Age issue 6, Batman Dark Age issue 6, DC vs. Vampires World War V issue 4, Black Lightning issue 1, Multiverse Collision Detected issue 5, Wayne Family Adventures 138, and then just some uncovers and facsimiles and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit of a lighter week next week actually. I wasn't expecting that, but
I'm excited for that because I was struggling to get through my books this week.
Yeah, I've only got 5 books, so yeah, five, and probably a Patreon book as well. But yeah, definitely a little bit later next week. And that's it. Unless I'm reading Black Lightning, which.
Oh yeah, hold on. Let me see the creative team on that.
Brandon Thomas and Fico Ozio are the team.
Well, I'll check that out. So if you don't want to, I'll do it because I do like Fico Ozio's art. I think Brandon Thomas is doing the Miracle Man stuff, or Mr. Miracle, Shiloh Norman stuff. That was pretty interesting.
I remember that been well done.
Yeah. I love the character of Black Lightning, and I feel like, just covering the number 1 might be nice.
All right, there you go. That is the show, everyone. So let us know what you thought of the books in the comments this week. Of course, you can support the show by liking, subscribing, but most of all by going to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting over there for however much you would like per month. You can get the show a little bit early if you do so. But that is us. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.